Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the PC-based race simulator platform known as iRacing. Tonight marks round 7 of the 12-round calendar, which has seen the trials and tribulations of many a driver across both lobbies, whether it be the Apex Racing Academy lobby, which we took a look at last night, or tonight's focus, which is on the Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing lobby, known as the CDA NLR lobby in short, whereby we'll be taking a look at our Pro and our AM Class drivers over the course of the two races, which took place live yesterday, but we're going to be bringing you all the experience as if it were live tonight, and I will promise you, as your commentator, I do not know what the results are, whether it be in qualifying, the sprint race or the feature race, so it is the case that this is a completely raw experience for me, and I hope it is for you guys and girls as well. But without further ado, what is our schedule for tonight as our drivers take to the Red Bull Ring circuit in Austria? The times, as you can see, they are in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or UTC, and they are as follows. At 8 o'clock approximately, we'll begin underway with qualifying, so in approximately 13.5 minutes time, and that will be a 15-minute session to determine our grid order for the purposes of the sprint race, which will follow immediately after, occurring at 8:15, and that will be a 15-minute race where there's no strategy in terms of pit stops, there's no pit stops expected, it's about go, go, go from start to the finish, and the only strategy is to be at the front and get the maximum possible points. After that, we'll be taking a brief pause. We'll be conducting our post-race interviews with our race winners, and then we'll be back at approximately 5 to 9 for the feature race that will kick off at 9 o'clock. That race being 60 minutes in length, including a mandatory pit stop, that key strategic element. Indeed, at the Red Bull Ring, the strategy is going to be ever more important, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. Now, who am I, you ask? Well, I'm your commentator and your host, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of the racing action tonight from the Austrian circuit. Now, as I said, this lobby is sponsored by Coach Dave Academy and also Next Level Racing, so without further ado, let's introduce our primary sponsors for this lobby. Who are Coach Dave Academy, I hear you ask? Well, Coach Dave Academy, in short, is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Whether you're looking to gain a tenth of a second, a whole second, alternatively look to set up the car in a way that's more suitable to your way of driving or for a particular discipline of driving, whether it be a 15-minute sprint, alternatively a 1-hour endurance, Coach Dave Academy is the place to go to. Be sure to check them out at CoachDaveAcademy.com today for further details. Indeed, Coach Dave Academy, renowned for working within the Assetto Corsa competition sphere, they've recently moved into the iRacing sphere and are releasing setups on a weekly basis in line with the current iRacing seasons, and definitely a great place to check out. And we're very grateful to have Coach Dave Academy on board with us. Indeed, they are contributing quite sizably to the prize pool for Lobby 2, and we look forward to seeing what prizes are going to be earned up from our drivers come the end of the season. Now, going from one of our sponsors to another, let's talk about Next Level Racing. Next Level Racing was founded in 2009 and is the world's leading simulation brand, revolutionising simulation with industry-leading product range, and with a clear focus on innovation and quality to meet demanding needs of sim racers. Next Level Racing's designs and technology shall take your sim racing experience to the next level. If you want to know more about their products, be sure to head to their official website, that's nextlevelracing.com today, for further information. That website again, nextlevelracing.com. And Next Level Racing on board with us ever since Season 1 and back for Season 2, and we're very grateful to have them with us, again contributing to the prize pool that is available to our drivers at the end of the season. And remember, there's not just prizes for our championship winners win the Pro and the AM class and also the Team Championship, but there are also prizes available for the most improved driver over the course of the season, the best overtake, the best livery, and last but not least, the most consistent driver over the course of the season. So plenty of prizes up for grabs, and indeed all of our drivers will be pushing hard to get those prizes. Now, speaking of our drivers, let's come on to our championship standings after round number 6. So you'll remember 2 weeks ago, we had the end of the first half of the season with the first of our two 2-hour super endurance races, which occurred at the French circuit at Le Mans. We saw in that race that it was a case that Gareth Williams was able to extend his championship lead, albeit by only 2 points in the end. Where Paul Walton, who was on course, we theorised for the win, having a major mistake midway through the race in the run to Tech Rouge, which saw him have to turn it into a recovery race, and indeed he did recover, but at the same time missed out on a major opportunity to close the deficit to Gareth Williams. Our two championship contenders in the Pro Championship separated now by 30 points. But on top of that, a further 38 points back, you have Dan Moorey in P3, and the story really outside of the top two is who is going to be our third place man come the end of the season. Alternatively, will we see the rest of the Pro Championship catch up to the two leaders? Because as you can see there, from Dan Moorey all the way down to Stefan Albanese, it is a distance of what is only 38 points. And as we move over to what is our second group in the Pro Class standings, it is the case, i.e. outside of the top 10, we can see Nigel Stock is only a further 2 points down. So it really is the case. P3 to P11 are separated by only a margin of what is at this point in time 40 points, and it is intensifying massively, and we expect that intensification of the racing to only continue at the Red Bull Ring tonight. Now, as we head back to look at the top 10 very quickly, just to fill you in on the picture outside of Dan Moorey, it is the case that Michael Sealt in P4 having a difficult day at Le Mans last time out and looking to make a recovery today, and whether he can get good points on the board, we'll have to wait and see. Joshua Wiggins, again, putting in a midfield performance, and not quite the performance he will have wanted. He will want to be right up there, and really at this point in time, looking to finish behind his teammate Paul Walton as best as possible, if not matching for pace. Matthew Proughton continuing the form, albeit that form has lost a little bit of momentum going into the season break, and we do wonder whether Proughton will be able to reignite that momentum, which we did see coming very strong in the first half of the opening half of the season, so the opening 3 rounds in particular. Or will it be the case that Paul Scott, who put in a good performance at Le Mans, he'll continue that trend and gain even more points, particularly now he's ahead of Alistair Kirk in P8, who was unable to finish the race at Le Mans due to technical issues, and Lamont Wedder closing the deficit to Kirk as well. Now, with only a point between the two of them, and Stefan Albanese up into the top 10 here and holding on by 2 points, as we saw earlier, ahead of Nigel Stock, who, as we look outside of our top 10 here, complete that gap of 40 points from P3 to P11. Paul Williams as well continuing his momentum, albeit having a difficult time last time out of Le Mans, a strategic gamble that did not work out for the Ferrari driver, going for the two-stop approach. It was the case it was not the optimum strategy within the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing lobby, and then Nathan J. Scott picking up some points on the board, but not the points he would have liked once again, and really right now trying to hunt down Paul Williams with a gap of what is 8 points at this point in time. James Neave and Koyoshi Kelly unable to make the race, and as a result not picking up any points, but William Foyle with a fantastic drive, the Crystal Autosport driver, picking up the win at Le Mans, putting a good 50 points on the board and continuing to demonstrate great quality, and we look forward to seeing what Foyle can achieve tonight. Jamie Dorey having a midfield performance there, the Next Gen Racing driver, on what is now 65 points, and then Stuart P. Taylor, Ed May and Rick Jansen not picking up any points at Le Mans and completing our 20 drives in the Pro Championship. Meanwhile, outside of the pros, we come to the AMs, and the story in the AM Championship is quite similar in a way to the Pro Championship. We have 2 runaway leaders. We have Stefan Vessels, who's really come to form, with another brilliant display at Le Mans, picking up the win, and it was the case that the South African driver, now 33 points clear of his main rival Mark Baker. But we do wonder whether Mark Baker, the Team Tetra Rouge driver, will be coming back strong come the second half of this season, which kicks off tonight, of course, given the fact there's a 33-point deficit, but at one point Mark Baker was the leader of the championship, where it was his consistency that was outweighing the blistering pace but inconsistency of Stefan Vessels. But it does look as though the South African has now found the consistency which made Baker so strong in the first half of the season. Davide Favo in P3 there, only the best part of what is 9 points ahead of Gareth Mills, and Elwyn Sykes giving pursuit, and Darren Doherty as well. And we can see there from P3 to P6 there is a delta of what is only 25 points between the drivers, and it is the case that any one of them could move up into P3 depending on how results shape out tonight at the Red Bull Ring. Travis Linscombe Hatfield again putting in a great performance at Le Mans, and really the American showing great form and moving up the order very rapidly in the M class, with Mike Sykes not able to finish the race. That's Mark Sykes, not Mike Sykes, I should say. Getting my words mixed up there. But Mark Sykes having a difficult day at Le Mans and technical issues, holding the car back and not enabling the Briton to finish. Liam Tack picking up good points, however, and now on 107 points with Mark Sykes, but Countback sees him in P9, not P8. Chris Keenan not able to finish at Le Mans due to technical issues of the BMW M4, seeing him in the end staying on 84 points. And as we look outside of the top 10, it is the case Paul Colburn picking up some good points and now moving on to 82 points and continuing his pursuit of the top 10 with Tom Delaney, Jack Wyburn, Mark Jardine, Renus Hamron, Luke Hobson, Reece Young, Adam B.M. Quinn, Tom Porter and Josh Brown, all unable to take part or finish at Le Mans and not picking up any further points to their campaigns. Meanwhile, in the team standings, we can see that in this team standings, of course, of the Constructors' Championship, if you will, being across both lobbies, it is still the case that Racing Team Astra leading by 9 points over Luxim at 24 with MV Esports, and really these two being major contenders for the overall team championship title, but do not count out RD Simsport or Switchback Motorsport in P3 and P4 respectively, who are continuing to maintain their distance to the top two and trying to close it inch by inch. Next Gen Blue and Altitude Esports, they're very closely met, and then it's Apex with MV Esports in P7 who are trying to chase after a top 6 position. CXR Project Black continuing their form on 345 points, but only 4 points clear of Team Tetruge, who have really come alive at the end of the first half of the season, and we look forward to seeing how they get on in the second half of the season. Ignium Motorsport completing our top 10, the lead Ignium Motorsport team, with the secondary team of Ignium Spark there giving pursuit in P11, and NXTGEN Orange, Delta Motorsport and TGC Racing close behind and very closely met to one another. However, do not count out RD Simsport 2, who in P15 at the moment on 281 points would love for an opportunity to hunt down TGC Racing, whereas in P16 McChange B2 not getting any points on the board at Le Mans and seeing their championship hopes dashed to the wayside for a round, and now Hamilton are going to recovery mode. Ignium Blaze, the third of the Ignium Motorsport teams, in P17 on 275 points. The best part of what is 21 points clear of McChange B1. The McChange teams in general having a difficult time at Le Mans. SVPMR in P19 and Bright Esports in P20. And Bright Esports are looking to turn things around at the Red Bull Ring. Outside of our top 20, we have Ignium Motorsport Phoenix, the fourth of our Ignium Motorsport teams in what is P21, Team Racing Netherlands Blue and Team Racing Netherlands Red in P22, P23, DDR in P24, and last but not least, Team Racing Netherlands Orange in P25 on 181 points. So what about our track for today as we come away from our standings? Well, tonight we are at the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix layout. We are at the Styrian circuit, located in Spielberg, Austria, the Styrian region of Austria that is. And as you can see from the image provided to us by simracingwiki.com, this circuit consisting of 9 corners, and it is a circuit which is about some absolutely thunderous straights and some major heavy braking zones. Whether they be uphill or downhill, there are unique braking zones to this circuit which will challenge our drivers' confidence on the brakes and indeed the ability to carry speed out of corner apex, because having the highest possible apex speed here is going to be critical, and getting on that loud pedal as soon as possible is the key to success. As you'll now see in this reference lap is brought to you by the AM Championship leader, Stefan Bessels, as he takes us around the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. So going across that timing line then and charging up towards turn at number 1, you see he's going to be looking for his braking marker on the left hand side, braking at the 100 metre board and coming down from 5th to 2nd gear, attacking the apex, bouncing a little bit too high on the apex curve there, the yellow sausage on the apex, unsettling the car, but he brings it back together and now charges in the long run up towards turn at number 2. Continuing his pace build up here, up into 5th gear and getting ready to go into the braking zone, going to brake as deep as possible here at the 100 metre board. We've seen qualifying as we saw there braking just after the 100 metre board, going as late as possible on light fuel and emerging from the first gear corner and now accelerating down towards turn 3. A slightly shorter straight down to turn 3, and it is the case now we go into the downhill braking zone here. You'll see the Vessels will brake earlier this time. He'll brake at about 110 metres, and as he brings the car in down to 2nd gear, tapping that apex curve before extending the steering there and making his way out of the corner through the right-hand kink of 4, this extended right-hand corner now as he makes his way into the crest into turn number 5. A downhill off-camber braking zone, you can see the car sliding there, wanting to understeer wide, and as he makes his way through the corner now coming down to turn 6. And as he comes through turn 6, another downhill braking zone, but trail braking in nice and tight to the apex in 3rd gear before accelerating out into turn 7, switchback right-hander, and now over the bridge he goes into his turns 8 to 9, the final 2 corners. Coming downhill and looking to trail brake into turn 8, a 5th gear, brake down to a 3rd gear corner, and as he makes his way through, as soon as he clears the apex, back on the throttle using the runoff area before coming down to 2nd gear for the final corner, and as he exits here, full on the throttle to come across that start-finish line and complete the lap. A lovely lap by Stefan Bessels there. We're very grateful for it. Now, as for our rules tonight, our drivers are required to run the iRacing medium downforce setup for both races. It is a fixed setup. We'll see the sprint setup used for the sprint race and the endurance setup used for the feature race, of course. In the sprint race, each driver will have 1 fast repair available, and a driver shall be subject to a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. In the feature race, meanwhile, the grid is set by a reverse drivers' championship order based on the championship standings after the previous round. And on top of that, the grid is separated into driver classes, with the classes starting approximately 2 seconds apart. What that means is that as a result, in the feature race, we will have the pros line up ahead of the AMs with our pro championship leader at the back of that pro pack and our lowest placed driver in the pro championship in attendance starting at the front and getting things underway. It will then be the same for the AMs, who start 2 seconds behind, and it will be up to the lead driver in the AM class in terms of that starting order, so our bottom placed AM driver in the championship, to get the field underway from 2 seconds behind the pros. Our driver's starting fuel load shall be restricted to 70% for the start of this race, and of course this is to ensure a mandatory pit stop where our drivers must take on fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. And each driver will have one fast repair available, and they shall be subject to a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points over the feature race. But that's enough about the rules and whatnot. Let's head back to those live pictures as we are now getting ready to go qualifying. We are only 10 seconds away from the qualifying session, and as we bring the cameras, we can see Paul Williams right now, the Team Tetra Rouge driver in the Pro Class, making his way around. But it looks as though in this final practice session already we are seeing a repeat of history from the Hungarian, and that is Stefan Vessels, who has put in a phenomenal time so far in this final practice session, a 1:29.248. We can see Gareth Williams only the best part of 200ths off. But as we look to Alistair Kirk, it is time to transition over to qualifying now, ladies and gentlemen. 15 minutes. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out as all of our drivers make their way out of the pits. Well, in the meantime, what I can definitely say to you is whilst we're waiting for all of our drivers to transition out onto the circuit, we can see that we've got a number of you guys and girls in the chat as we are just trying to get cameras on some of our drivers who are piling out of the pits. And indeed, here they all come roaring out of the pit lane, and as they charge through, we've got Dan Moorey coming out here, and we also bring up the circuit map, which will shortly be showing us where our drivers are out on the circuit after they completed their outlap. Indeed, this outlap quite critical. We are expecting in the 15-minute session to see approximately 6 to 7 fast laps from each and every driver. Given the short lap time here of 1.5 minutes or just under in qualifying, we'll provide everybody with ample opportunity to get a good qualifying lap in. And slipstream being so critical here, and we saw that in the Apex Racing Academy lobby last night. What we saw in the end, the pole lap was set, a phenomenal pole lap in the 28, set by Luke McKeown in the Pro Class. It's one of those opportunities here where having that outright pace on lap's good, but getting the slipstream is even more critical as our drivers make their way on through. Now, as we just see our drivers making their way round right now, we will just briefly respond to a little bit of feedback there with regards to the game audio and make sure that it is dropped slightly. That has been dropped a little bit for you, but we can check in with the chat and we can see there we do have, and we say hello to Elwin Sykes in the Facebook chat, TGC Racing Live in the Twitch chat, also Darren Doherty in the YouTube chat, Tack Ali as well in the Twitch and in the Twitch chat, and we've also got there what is we've got Elwin Sykes in the YouTube chat and Alistair Kirk in the YouTube chat, and also Paul Walton in the YouTube chat, and last but not least the newcomer for tonight, a driver who has joined us in the AM class, and that is Sean Shute, I believe, joined us from Racing Team Astra, and he is joining us tonight, and he's in the YouTube chat as well. Good evening to you, Sean, and it'll be interesting to see how you get on in your debut as of round number 7 in the series. And I do believe you are in the AM class. I'm just waiting for confirmation, and well, indeed, I do believe it is the AM class. But do let us know, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything we can tweak with regards to the audio and whatnot. We are running on a new broadcasting setup as of tonight, and that should hopefully bring in some new introductory features. But hopefully, we've also made some tweaks there to the microphone, and that might make also some updates later on in the program. As we say hello to Titan Taylor as well from TTG in the YouTube chat, and it's good to see you here, Taylor. And well, we are now underway with this qualifying session as all of our drivers are now getting themselves set and on their first set of fast laps, and we'll have to wait and see how it goes. We're just looking right now at Alistair Kirk, who's flying his way down towards turn number 5 here, and as our drivers make their way around, it is the case, quite sunny skies, very limited cloud over the circuit at this point in time, and that does mean that track temperature will come up quite rapidly as our drivers make their way around. We will see how that influences things a little bit later on, but for the time being we can see that our drivers are making their way around, and as they do, well, we will see what sort of times come in. But we're expecting our pole time here to be somewhere in the region of a low 29 as a minimum, if not a high 28, as we do see here there William Fold deciding to run a little bit wide there and let drives through. I think he's had a bit of a disaster of a lap as we are just waiting to see those initial times come in. And there's our first time. It is Gareth Williams who comes across the timeline and immediately jumps the pits there on a 29.681. And meanwhile, we can see where it's the case, Josh Wiggins and Paul Walton. Well, Walton not putting in a good lap there, and I think it might be the case that Walton just affording some slipstream to Wiggins, and now they have reversed their roles and they're going to do the same or the opposite, effectively, again, as they make their way on down. As we do see Walton do a little bit of a disappearing act there. I think there might be some connectivity issues with regards to this lobby. We will wait to see in short order what's happened to Paul Walton, and there he is once again. So that was just a brief connectivity issue, and it was the case he disappeared out of existence for a brief period of time. But meanwhile, we can see that Shute on his debut, currently P10 overall, that's P4 in the AM class. He makes his way around. But speaking of AMs, Darren Doherty setting the fastest AM time so far, provisional of what is a 30.03. A very good lap there, and I think that's setting the standard quite considerably. But we are, of course, waiting for Stefan Vessels to see what he can set, given the fact that he did set that low 29 in the final practice session as they make their way on around. And meanwhile, looking a bit further down the order, we can see Jack Wyborn, the English AM driver here, currently P7 in class, P15 overall. The Scuderia Ferrari colours, of course, on Jack Wyborn's car as he makes his way around the circuit. Looking very fetching indeed as he comes on through. Does a bit of a drift there into turn number 6. It loses the rear end of the car and, well, catches the car very nicely. But it's going to be the case he's going to be sat there for some time because he's got a lot of drivers coming through on the circuit map right now. The last driver to come through is Sean Shute before he's able to get himself back up to speed. He has to do so quickly. And speaking of getting up to speed, Alistair Kirk immediately putting in a colossal lap. A 1:29.619 from Alistair Kirk. And that sees him jump up to pole position for the time being. As we see Jamie Dory here just cross line improving to a 29.903 as he makes his way through turn 1. But then William Foyle comes on across the line as well. And William Foyle putting in an absolutely brilliant lap there. It looks like a 29.592 as he comes through turn number 1 here. And he's the best part of 300ths faster than Alistair Kirk in that process as he now makes his way around and up towards turn number 2 here. And the Crest Autosport driver attacking the circuit early and getting in a very nice qualifying lap as it would seem as he makes his way through. Now, so meanwhile, we look a bit further down our order once again with Travis Linscombe Hatfield, in fact, just alongside or a bit ahead of what is William Foyle here as they make their way down towards turn at number 3. And as they come through, you can see Foyle flash his lights furiously here, but I think it's the case that Linscombe Hatfield will feel he's on a lap and therefore he shouldn't need to move out of the way as they makes his way on through the very colourful American Lamborghini Huracan as he makes his way out of turn number 3 here. He's currently P5 in class, P13 overall as he makes his way down towards turn number 5 and he comes up rip-roaring on through and we'll just have to wait and see. But meanwhile, I can tell you that Paul Walton is putting in a lap right now and he's coming towards the end. We're just going to jump to Paul Walton here, the RD Simsport driver, as he comes down into turn at number 8, and let's just see how he brings it all together. He has improved on his personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and as he comes out the final corner, what's it going to be for Walton? He crosses the line, and it is... Well, as our time screen gets updated, it is going to be from Paul Walton. It is an improvement. Well, it's not an improvement, and no, it is not an improvement. So Walton in the end backing off at the final corner. I think there might have also been a track limits incursion, and that's why he did not improve or set a lap time that was an improvement, as we just checked our data sheet there, and I do believe it was track limits have just held him back from setting that lap as he continues on around. But as he goes around, we're looking from one pro to another, and we can see here we have got Stuart P. Taylor now making his way around on the circuit right now as he comes down in towards turn at number 8. And the TGC racing driver here pressing on hard as he makes his way down and around as he comes through turn at number 9 right now, looking very smooth as the Ferrari driver as he comes on through. Can he improve from P13 overall? He crosses the line. It's not an improvement, but he does go on to another lap here. And speaking of a driver who has improved considerably, Paul Williams, a Ferrari driver, just a bit further up the road, going out of turn 1 up towards turn number 2. It is the case that right now he has built up quite a bit of an advantage over a good chunk of the pro field, but he is still currently P5 in class, and he's only 600ths off of Jamie Dory right now. And from what we understand, going into this round, there has been a significant balance of performance adjustment with regards to a number of the cars that are being raced in this series, and the most notable one is with the BMW M4, which has had quite a bit of ballast added to the rear end, quite a bit of weight added, and that has compromised its top speeds. As a result, we are expecting now the fastest car down the straights here at the Red Bull Ring. You're looking at it, it's the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. That's what we've heard at least, but whether that's going to be the tail, because we would expect one of the fastest cars in the straight line is going to be the strongest, we will have to wait and see as more and more lap times are coming in. And we look from right now Paul Williams a bit further down the order, and we've got Mark Baker here, his teammate, who really is struggling in this qualifying session so far. Currently P23 overall, that's P10 in class. And it's not working out at this point in time for what is Mark Baker as he makes his way on around through turn at number 5. We will wait and see what he's able to do a bit later on, but it's not looking good at this point in time for what is Mark Baker as he makes his way around on the circuit and continues to do so. Now, we are just going to make some slight more adjustments with regards to our microphone volume here, ladies and gentlemen. Do keep us posted if this does improve at all. We're going to keep adjusting that over the course of tonight because I appreciate the feedback that you guys are giving. Just keep us in the loop as we go. But we can see Mark Baker here just pressing his way around right now and continuing to press on all the same as he makes his way down towards what is the start-finish line. And does he improve? He does not improve by looks of his Mark Baker. Instead, he goes on to another lap and continues his way around the circuit once again as he now makes his way through turn 1 and up towards turn number 2. And as he comes on through turn number two, well, he comes up towards turn number 2, I should say, just building up that speed once again. And we'll have to wait and see what Baker is able to do. As we can see TGC Racing Live there. Thank you for the feedback there, TGC. And well, hopefully that will mean that everything is now sorted. But of course, if not, we can always take a look back a little bit later. We have made some more microphone adjustments in the meantime. But right now, with what is 5.5 minutes of this qualifying session left to go, we'll have to wait and see what happens next with regards to our drivers in the session. Travis Linscombe-Hatfield having one of his weaker qualifying sessions here. Overall P17. I mean, to be fair, that is P5 in the AM class right now as he crosses that timeline and goes on to another lap here. But it does look as though Hatfield's struggling. And a lot of drivers, I think, now really having difficulty in finding that better lap, as we see there Linscombe-Hatfield getting it very wrong on the exit of turn 1, straight into the wall there, the rear end just kicking around, but he recovers the car. And meanwhile, we can see Joshua Wiggins here, who started off strong in this qualifying session, now going to try and build back up as he makes his way across that timeline, and he goes on to another lap. We ride on board here with Joshua Wiggins as he takes us around for another flying lap. And as he comes out of turn 1 in the Porsche 911 RSR, here's the case, just building up as much speed as possible and now charging down towards turn number 2. Apologies there, folks, I think we just had a slight glitch on our screens, but that has cleared away. And we can see that right now it's the case, Josh Wiggins making his way up towards turn number 2. Into the heavy braking zone he goes here, and as he makes his way on through the corner, looking very smooth right now. But in terms of his sector times, well, I can tell you that that opening sector was an improvement on his previous best. He is continuing to build up right now as he makes his way down towards turn number 2. Coming into the turn number 3, I should say, coming down into that heavy braking zone, coming all the way down through the gears to second gear, and as he makes his way on through, we will have to wait and see as he comes on out to the exit, and looking okay so far as he now comes up into turn number 5 here. Perhaps one of the more tricky corners of the circuit, given it's off camber and it's a rolling left-hander that goes downhill mid-apex, and you can see keeping it nice and together so far as he now moves into sector 3. Now in terms of that sector, his sector 1 was an improvement, his sector 2 was not an improvement. Will he be able to improve? Will he be able to improve in what is sector 3? We will have to wait and see a little bit later on this lap as he makes his way on through turn number 8 and turn number 9. And as he comes on down here into turn number 9, it is the case that right now as he makes his way on through, it's looking smooth, but is it going to be enough to see him jump up the order? Well, we'll see as he comes across the line here, and well, it is not an improvement for Wiggins. He does not improve, and he stays in P9 in class, P13 overall, which if so, that is going to be a very tricky situation for him later on tonight, particularly in the sprint race, but there's not much time to make up places. We see Alistair Kirk improves, and well, it's the case. Alistair Kirk takes provisional pole position in the Pro Class and overall with a 29.482, and my goodness, that is something in its entirety. And it does look as though Alistair Kirk pushing on and trying to get the job done as he makes his way around the circuit right now and heads out through turn number 2 and down towards 3 once again. 3 minutes to go, and this qualifying session continues to build up here, but Alistair Kirk definitely setting a very strong time so far as he now makes his way down towards what is turn number 3. Now as he comes on down at this point, it is the case, looking very smooth, but I think it's going to be one of those situations where he's cooling down on this lap and then building up towards one more lap. And thank you for the feedback there, Paul Pecco, in the YouTube chat. We will have to look at those audio adjustments a bit later on. We'll try and take a look during the break between the 2 races, but thank you for that continuous feedback as we do see right now Alistair Kirk making his way through turn 6 and into 7, and as he comes roaring on through right now, it looks as though Kirk just pressing on and getting ready to go on to what will be one final flying lap come the end. He might be able to squeeze one more in after this, as we do see Chris Keenan finally get a time on the board there, and a 31.188 is the slowest time of the session so far. And Chris Keenan right now, he's P10 in the AM class, P25 overall, and that is going to be the very best that, well, it's going to be the best he's set so far. Will he be able to improve? We'll have to wait and see as he makes his way up into turn number 2 once again. And you can see tucked in behind in there Stefan Vessels, who whilst we've been keeping our eyes more on the Pro Class, in the AM class, Stefan Vessels has taken that provisional pole position in the AM class. And to give you a quick summary of the class lap times rather than what is the combined lap times, as we just bring them up on your screen for you, you can see in the top left corner there in the Pro Class, it's Alistair Kirk on provisional pole with a 129.482, 1/10 clear of William Foyle. Meanwhile in the AM class, it's Stefan Vessels on pole by 129.830 by 2/10 over Darren Doherty, as we're coming on to the last flying lap for most of our drivers now, if they're not already onto it. And as they make their way on through, we can see that I think that's Lambert Wedder just parking the car up and staying out of the way for a brief moment so as not to obstruct drivers. In fact, yeah, that was Lambert Wedder as they make their way on through and around, and as they make their way through, in fact that was Rick Jansen there, my apologies. And as they come on through right now, we do look back to that overall standing sheet, and we can see how the two classes integrate in amongst one another once again as they now make their way onto what will be their final flyers. And we can see Stefan Wessels going for one more lap here. Indeed, the Racing Team Astra guys really putting in a huge amount of effort, and it's currently Racing Team Astra P1, P3, and also what is P7, and then, well, I'm trying to find where Elwin Sykes is in all of this at this point in time, and P5 in the AM class. They have got themselves on every single odd number in the AM class as it currently stands. Now, meanwhile, looking a bit further around as well, coming to the end of the qualifying session, we can see Paul Williams as well making his way on through, going on to his final lap here. The Team Tetra Rouge Pro driver, he's got his AM teammate just ahead of him, Mark Baker, and will they try to do something special with the slipstream here? Well, I think Mark Baker's a bit too far up the road. If they want to try and do that, I think it's the case. They've left it a bit too late to work some magic. So it's going to be, oh goodness me, and Mark Baker getting it very wrong on the exit there of turn number 1, straight back to the pit. No, goes Mark Baker. He will not be improving any further. What about everybody else out on circuit right now? So we've got drivers coming across to finish their qualifying laps, where it is the case. Davide Favo does not improve as he parks it up and completes his qualifying session. Meanwhile, we've got Gareth Mills coming on through, but before we check on Gareth Mills, we've got Dan Moorey coming across the line here. Does Moorey improve from his current situation? This is not a strong qualifying session for Dan Moorey. He does not improve, and in fact, that is a disaster for Moorey. He'll be starting all the way down in P14. What about Stuart P. Taylor? Well, he did not improve either. We've got more drivers coming on through. We've got our P22 driver, Gareth Mills, who's parked up. And now we've got even more coming on through. As we can see, in fact, we've got the number 26 position person, and that is Chris Keenan here coming across. And he is the last of our qualifying lap times. He does not improve. And then we do have our pole position overall and pole position in Pro Class. That's Alistair Kirk. He's coming around here, the Lamborghini Huracan driver. Will he be able to improve and raise the bar even higher as he crosses the line? It doesn't look like an improvement, and he does not improve in the end, but it's going to be the case. I think William Ford is already said and done in this qualifying session, so I think it's the case Kirk has got it done, unless we suddenly see anything special. As we see Paul Walton jump up to a 29.720. And Paul Walton there setting a very good lap time. It's not enough to get him up onto the front row, but it gets him onto that second row, unless Paul Scott has something to say. Paul Scott does not. He parks up. And that is it, I think, ladies and gentlemen. That is qualifying over as everybody is putting their final laps. So it is Alistair Kirk who takes pole position in the Pro Class and overall, and it is Stefan Wessels who takes pole position in the AM Class, what is a P7. And you can see them left-hand side of your screen. Look at the mix of pros and AMs. We are not seeing a clear cut of pro drivers ahead of AM class drivers. We've got a lot of AMs integrated into the mix with the pros, and as a result that will give them a major opportunity to try and use a little bit of tactics with drivers in other classes in order to give themselves some defensive posture versus their opponents within their own class. And we will definitely see that, and the one who will capitalise on it the most, I am sure, is Stefan Wessels, who starting P7 overall will have 3 pro drivers between himself and Darren Doherty, who qualified P2 in the AM class, as we now wait to get the grid forming. And in fact, as the grid is now being formed, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you through that grid. So it's Alistair Kirk who lines up on pole in the end by just under a tenth off of Gareth Williams, completing the first row. Paul Walton and Paul Scott on row number 2, with Matthew Proughton and Stefan Wessels on row number 3. Stefan Wessels in the end taking that pole position. In fact, we seem to have lost a driver on our timing screens. And then Paul Williams and Jamie Dory on row number 4. Josh Wiggins and Darren Doherty on row number 5, with William Ford and Sean Shute completing row number 6 in our first 6 rows. Then we've got Dan Moorey and Nigel Stock on row number 7, with Elwin Sykes and Mark Baker, the 2 AM drivers, on row number 8. We then have what is Stefan Albanese and Stuart Taylor on row number 9, and Travis Linscombe Hatfield and Lambert Wedder completing our 10th row. Rick Jansen and Gareth Mills P21, P22, Davide Favo and Andy Walmsley P23, P24, and then last but not least there we have what is Liam Tack and Jack Wyburn on our 13th row, and Chris Keenan there starting off in P27. Gus Franken joining the wrong lobby. He is what what is a Apex Racing Academy lobby driver. So don't worry too much about that. It's Chris Keenan. We're going to see 27 drivers take to the circuit, and Chris Keenan will be at the back of the field. A difficult qualifying session for the Belgian driver. As we now look back to our grid as they line up right now and get ready to go racing here, and it's all in the hands of Alistair Kirk, who I think will feel that he's in a little bit of a unique position. This will be the first pole position that he has had in qualifying in this series to date, and he has the opportunity to lead our drivers away. And what an opportunity that is. And I think in his mind he'll be thinking about how can he get this done right first and foremost. Well, we'll have to wait and see, as we are only now about approximately 15 seconds away from the half parade lap, indeed that manual double file rolling start. And our drivers have been told they can only go at the start finish line. They are not to go before then. We will wait and see how it all plays out as they make their way away from their starting positions, and it will be our safety car that gets everybody underway. So as we now wait for our drivers to pull off the line here, it is the case they all make their way away very gradually. A little bit of wheel smoke being kicked up there, a bit further back, as we do a look to the blimp camera here, and we can see all of our field now concertina in their way around through turn number 6 and up into 7. And well, we can see drivers there just trying to space themselves out a little bit with regards to the field, and in doing so they'll just give themselves a bit of breathing room as they now make their way up towards what is turn number 8. They make their way on through, and as they do at this point, we look back up towards our leader at this point in time, who, as we're about to get underway right now, it is the case that Alistair Kirk will be going racing very, very shortly as the pace car pulls away, and it's to Alistair Kirk to take us away for the sprint race. It's lights out and away we go then for the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring in the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing Lobby, and Alistair Kirk gets off to a good start. As you can see a bit further back, we do have quite the free wide situation occurring there. We've got Matthew Proutin being caught by Rick Jansen, who went for the double move there. Rick Jansen gaining a lot of places at the start and moving quite a way up the order. Meanwhile, a bit further back we can see Paul Williams here in a bit of side-by-side with what is Joshua Wiggins as they make their way out, and there's a bit of contact between the two of them. They both just about make it out unscathed as they come up into the heavy braking zone for turn number 2. Oh, goodness me, and Wiggins there caught in a bit of contact with the Crystal Autosport machine of William Foyle. And William Foyle, well, he's been able to bring it back together, but that was very, very close between the two of them. Stefan Albanese in a side-by-side here with Dan Moorey in the battle for P13 overall as they make their way down towards turn number 3. But meanwhile, looking up front, we can see Alistair Kirk under pressure here from Gareth Williams and Paul Walton also trying to come on through as we ride on board here with Paul Walton, who's going on the offensive and really a spectator at this point in time to Alistair Kirk versus Williams as they make their way into turn number 5. Now as they come on through, it does look as though Gareth Williams has got the position for the time being, but will he be able to hold on to it? That's the big question as they make their way through turn number 6. Now as they come on through, we can see it's the case that right now where it does look as though Kirk getting very, very feisty versus what is Williams as they make their way over the crest here and come down in towards turn number 8. But Williams has got the early job done, which is to get ahead. Now can he hold on to the lead? Will it be the case that he's got Alistair Kirk trying to come back in very shortly, and Paul Walton will try and do the following as well as they all make their way out the final corner. So after one lap, it is Gareth Williams leading by only 1/10 of a second ahead of Alistair Kirk, followed by Paul Walton. And there is Paul Scott in P4, who's battling side by side with Rick Jansen as they make their way up into the braking zone for turn number 1. Rick Jansen gains the place, but Paul Scott will try and cut back here. Matthew Proutin just behind in P6, Jamie Dory P7, and Stefan Vessels, the AM class leader, in P8 right now as they make their way up towards turn number 2. Darren Doherty giving pursuit here, P2 in the AM class, P9 overall, but he's got Joshua Wiggins on his inside as they make their way up towards the braking zone this time around. They come into the heavy braking zone here, and you can see the mad scramble as it is the case Proutin versus Dory. But meanwhile, Doherty trying to go around the outside of Wiggins here to hold the position, but he can't quite find it, and instead has to wait for an opportunity later on. They come down towards turn number 3, and as they make their way on down right now, it does look as though a bit further up again, Matthew Proutin here, where he's trying to find his way past what is there Rick Jansen and holding off Jamie Dory at the same time. He's on the inside as the RP Motorsports Pro driver, but can he get it done? I think it's a little bit nip and tuck if he's able to as they make their way out the corner, and as they make their way in towards turn number 5, you see Jamie Dory looking for that opportunity on the inside here. The Audi driver looking very fighty indeed as they make their way through. Jansen goes a bit wide, Proutin a little bit of contact and lift off there as they make their way through. Proutin has got the move done. There's another tap there between the two of them as Jansen goes up onto the gravel, and you can see Stefan Vessels having to take to the outside here, and this is going to give Darren Doherty every opportunity he wants as Jansen is now boxed in amongst the AM driver drivers on the inside here, and as they make their way in towards turn number 8, you can see how they settle back in with Darren Doherty trying to go on through, but Janssen just blocks him off there, and Stefan Vessels now relies on the pro driver to give him the space and the breathing room to hold on for the time in as they make their way towards the end of lap number 2. Ferocious stuff between these guys as they make their way up towards turn number 1 once again. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, you can see Darren Moorey here trying to go for the move on Joshua Wiggins, and Wiggins on the inside there of what is Darren Doherty as Doherty drops back another place here. The AM driver flashing his lights in frustration, it would seem, at the fact that he just cannot make his way up the field. Instead, he's being held up, and as they make their way on up the hill right now, I'm not sure why Mark Baker, William Thorne Company are listed as out. We'll take a look back at that later, but right now we can see it's the case that Dan Moorey just trying to hold on to the position, but he can't at this point in time versus Darren Doherty, who really wants to get a moving on, get on through. A bit further back, Nigel Stock, who had a dismal qualifying session where he's only lost 1 place since the start of this right now, but the Ford GT driver, the only Ford driver in this entire series, well, he's going for something a bit different. It's not working out right now, but what is working out, Elwyn Sykes battling with what is Stuart Taylor here as they make their way out to turn number 3 and through 4 up into 5, and as they come up into the braking zone here for 5 very short, you can see they're almost 3 wide here as we've got Weather trying to get on through versus the AM and the pro driver as they make their way down through turn number 5. Sykes cutting between the 2 pro drivers here. And in doing so, I think he's going to be feeling a little bit of frustration in the fact he just wants to get on with his race. He doesn't want to be battling with the pros as they make their way on out of the corner. But we look from them to a bit further up the order very shortly. But before we do, let's just see if Weather's going to try and go for the move into turn number 8 here. He's fully alongside. I expect the BMW driver to commit to this move. And as they go through side by side, they go through turn number 8 and down into turn number 9. And as they make their way on through, it does look, there's a little bit of contact between the 2 of them. But Weather gets it done. But here comes Travis Linscombe Hatfield, who's going to make it 3 wide in the run down towards turn number 1. He's going for the Moses manoeuvre here in the long run down, but as he's going to be able to do it, he's going to do it on the brakes here, and it's the case the privateer from the United States of America gains 2 places at the price of 1. Very nice move there from Linscombe Hatfield to capitalise, and a very brave one as well. You don't normally see that into turn 1 when you come from the middle of 2 drivers to gain the places, but it's the case. He's showing us in the 299 car how it's done as they make their way up into the braking zone once again for turn 2. You can see Sykes versus Weather, neither one of them wants to give way, and Davide Favo now, the other racing team Astra driver, getting caught up in this as they make their way out of 2 and down towards 3. It's 2 Ferraris sandwiching in with a BMW, but I think Weather's now got it done. Meanwhile, up front in the battle for the overall lead and the lead of the pro class, you can see that Gareth Williams still got Alistair Kirk and Paul Walton right behind him as they make their way out of turn number 5 and down towards 6. Now, it does look as though Gareth Williams is gradually pulling away versus Kirk here, as we can see that Paul Walton is still all over the back of Alistair Kirk, and then it's Paul Scott who's a further 1.6 seconds back and not closing at this point in time, as meanwhile as they make their way all the way on through the corners right now. Is the case, well, I do believe we may be experiencing some slight technical issues with regards to this replay, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try and get those fixed as soon as possible, and I think I know what's happened here and we'll explain later on, but it is the case that right now as all our drivers make their way on through, we can see that we've got a slight glitch on our time screens because it is not the case that right now Matthew Prouting is leading this race. That's very unfortunate. I'm sorry to lose what is the battle for the lead there. That's a technical issue outside of our control. We'll explain that later on. But right now I can tell you that with regards to what is Lambert Weather just trying to make its way on up the order as soon as possible here. And then looking a bit further back, well, in the case it will be looking to what is the front of the field. I can now, well no, I can't present to you what is the battle for the lead at this point in time. So the drivers make their way on through. We can see here Andy Walmsley, meanwhile, having a difficult start to his race and trying to gain as many places as possible. As meanwhile, just up ahead, that's Jack Weibel coming in very deep into turn number 2 in what is effectively the battle for position versus what is Stefan Albanese and Elwyn Sykes as well. But it is the case that these drivers, as they scramble for position here, not working out at this point in time, and they press on up ahead in towards turn number 3. And as they come down, Albanese are going to get that place back, and I think he's going to hold on to it for the concealed futures. I think we have had Nigel Stock have a major moment coming out to turn number 3. We've got some smoke being kicked up there, and you can see the Ford GT driver with a very crumpled front end as they make their way down in towards turn number 5. And well, as they make their way on through right now, ladies and gentlemen, do give us a very brief moment. We are going to cut away and just see if we can fix the technical issues that are being experienced. We won't be too long. We will be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Sincere apologies for the issue there. Unfortunately, as you will have seen in the chat of your respective stream, it's a case that we did not have sight of all the cars out on circuits. That's why we lost our leaders, but we resumed the racing from where we just left off, going into the second half of the sprint race. You haven't missed anything as such, but what we can see is that Gareth Williams is still being pressured here by Alistair Kirk, as they got onto lap number 6, and it looks like Alistair Kirk looking for a move there, but not able to find it. As a bit further back, we've got Matthew Proughton up the inside here, and Paul Scott attacking hard here as Matthew Proughton as he gains another position and now goes hunting after what is P3 or an opportunity for it, but he's side by side here with what is Paul Scott as they make their way up into turn number 2. Now as they make their way up the hill here, will he be able to get it done? We can see just ahead here, Paul Walton going for the move on Alistair Kirk. Now, will these two squabbling for the position cost them time? As we see Paul Scott getting back ahead of Matthew Proughton, and behind Stefan Vessel's getting involved. As we can see also Jamie Dory trying to come on through. But looking ahead, it does look so Alistair Kirk on a mad scramble here to try and come back at Walton into turn number 3. And Walton, they're just opening the steering wheel very late. A little twitch there from Paul Walton. I do wonder whether he was caught by surprise and thought that perhaps Alistair Kirk was coming in a bit too hot. As meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Darren Doherty, who's trying to scramble after Stefan Vessels. He can't get clear of Rick Janssen. This is really difficult stuff for the AM driver, who just wants to have a pop at what is the AM driver ahead of him rather than the pros around him. But he's not been given that opportunity, but they're allowed to race one another. It's not the case as a hidden rule or a notable rule to say that you're not allowed to battle drivers of another class. They are permitted to, but it's just the case that right now Darren Doherty just being in a position where he's battling with the pros, it's obviously great fun for them all, but it's not the case he's going to get any points for it as they make their way down into turn number 8 once again here. But as they make their way on through, really this lap has been a back and forth and a bit of segue between our top 3, and also Darren Doherty just trying to find his way on through, and Paul Scott as well, who up into P4 will now be trying to make the breakaway versus Matthew Proughton. And what can Jamie Dory do from a P6 is the big question as they make their way out of the corners to go charging up towards turn number 2 once again. Now as they roll on through it this time, we can see a bit further back in the rear of the picture there, Josh Williams finding his way on through, and it looks so what on earth has happened there to Rick Janssen? Rick Janssen into the wall. Now I'm not sure what's happened to Rick Janssen, but straight into the wall there. I'm wondering if there was contact with another driver, but Rick Janssen has jumped to the pits there, and it did not look as though that car was going anywhere but off the road. As meanwhile Darren Doherty presses on and gains a position from it, and now has only got Dan Moorey and Joshua Williams between himself and Stefan Vessels, but meanwhile looking from them to back up in the battle for the lead of the overall race in the pro class with 5 minutes to go and 3 laps after this one. It does look as though Gareth Williams will have Alistair Kirk coming back at him very soon, as Kirk really held off Paul Walton in the end. He came back at him through turn number 3, and I do wonder right now whether it's the case that both Kirk and Walton are waiting for Williams to make a mistake, or they're going to try and pounce on the final lap, because it does look as though it's a bit too calm at the moment. I'm wondering what sort of chess and mind games are going on in those cars, as meanwhile Matthew Proughton is going back on the offensive versus what is Paul Scott as they make their way through turn 8 and down towards 9. Now behind them Jamie Dory giving that pursuit, and as they make their way through the final corner, you can see it's the case that Proughton getting the better exit. He's going to have his nose ahead as they go on to lap number 8, but as they do here, is it enough to force a move versus Paul Scott? Well, I think Scott's going to be aware of the fact, as you can see a flash of the lights there from Jamie Dory, and Paul Scott goes to the cutback, but now Dory's going to try and make this into a 3-wide situation as they go roaring down towards turn number 2, and as they make their way down, we look to the helicopter cam here as the helicopter follows them up into the corner. You can see they all try to scramble for position. What with Jamie Dory picking up a lot of speed, he's going to try and go all the way around the outside of what is Paul Scott, and the 2 next-gen racing drivers will not want to impede one another, and that's very smart navigation there from Jamie Dory. Of course, he relied on Paul Scott to give him the space, but it looks as though now the 2 next-gen racing drivers have gone for the position swap, and in doing so they may give themselves an opportunity to break away from Proughton. As you see Paul Scott going back on the offensive, but more for a defensive line versus Proughton, and also to tell his teammate, get a move on because I've got Matthew Proughton putting the pressure on. As meanwhile we look from them to a bit further back, and Darren Doherty caught up behind Dan Moorey still as they make their way out of turn number 3 through 4 and up into 5. Further back, I can tell you that Nigel Stock trying to get on the back here of Lamont Wedder as they make their way through 4 and up into 5. The wounded Ford GT driver just pressing on as they make their way through the corner, as they've now got only 3 minutes to go by the time they clear the apex and make their way into turn number 6. Now as they come on down, I think Dan Moorey's had a bit of an off. He hasn't had any major off in order to lose the position of Darren Doherty. It's probably a brief off there. The track sensor just saying that he had them off, where it was the case it was just one tyre going a bit too far and tripping the sensor. But meanwhile we look from them to the battle for the overall lead once again. You can see here Gareth Williams holding position for the time being as they make their way through turn 1 and down towards 2. Now the big challenge, of course, here for Gareth Williams is what can he do to hold off Alistair Kirk. Kirk with the scramble here as they make their way up towards 2, and as they head in towards the braking zone, the heavy braking zone, Alistair Kirk's going to go deep. He's got the overspeed, but you can see how Gareth Williams on that inside line goes very, very defensive and just misses parking it up on apex, but does enough to curb Kirk's momentum to stop him from getting the full cutback. So as they make their way down towards turn number 2, it is the case that as they come into the heavy braking zone, no change is there, as we can see Kirk making a tap on the inside and Gareth Williams just getting a little bit knocked about there. Kirk having to get his elbows out and Gareth Williams trying to respond in kind, but not able to shut the door as Paul Walton comes on through. 2 minutes to go, one more lap after this one at least, and as they make their way through the first sequence of the corners going into sector 3, and now they're into sector 3 at long last. It is the case, Paul Walton trying to go all the way around the outside of Gareth Williams, and as they emerge from the corner here, Paul Walton still has to wait. It's very frustrating stuff here for the Lamborghini Huracan driver from RD Simsport, who we ride on board with now, and as he makes his way into the braking zone, he's going to look up the inside, he's going to force the issue, and as they make their way through, they're side by side, and this is going to release Alistair Kirk to at least a half a second advantage as they make their way on out, and as they exit the corner and go charging up towards turn number 1, once again onto the final lap, it's Jamie Dory ahead of Paul Scott here, and Paul Scott having to hold off what is Matthew Proughton from coming back at him. As they make their way up into the braking zone, once again you can see Paul Scott literally, I think the patience is running out between the two teammates as they make their way out of the corner, and Stefan Vessel's just behind watching and I think studying the pros and thinking about how he can potentially take the fight to them in the feature race if he wants to bring some surprises. But looking back up front here, we can see Gareth Williams defended versus Paul Walton. He parks on apex and Paul Walton turns in and finds a face full of BMW on the other side of the apex, and it's absolutely fine that he can park it on the apex, Gareth Williams, so long as he's not driving too slowly as to cause an incident. And as they make their way down towards 3, no change between these drivers, but Alistair Kirk being given the breathing room that he so much desires to stay ahead for the time being as they make their way out of the corner. Now further back, Jamie Dory here, well, he's holding off Paul Scott and Matthew Proughton right now. I suspect Matthew Proughton is getting a little bit frustrated there being behind Paul Scott, as we're hearing that there's been a couple of passes further down, and Stefan Albanese going very slowly here as we've got the mad dash in the run coming down towards turn number 3, and we can see it's Davide Favo with Mark Baker on his inside, but Mark Baker too far back to capitalise, as we can see Jack Wyborn coming through the corner, but as they make their way on through, and we can see a little bit further about Elwin Sykes trying to go around the outside. It is the case as he makes his way through the final corner. It will be Alistair Kirk who takes the win in what is the sprint race here ahead of Gareth Williams as they cross the line. Gareth Williams coming home in P2, but where on earth is Paul Walton, which Jamie Dory who takes the podium in the end in P3, Paul Scott P4, Matthew Proughton P5, and Stefan Vessels brings home the win in the AM class there in P6 overall. Brilliant drive from the Racing Team Astra driver with Paul Walton just behind. Walton I think had an off right at the end there and coming home in P7 as a result. That's P7 overall, P6 in class. Josh Wiggins, his teammate, just behind. Dan Moorey there in P9 and Darren Doherty behind him. Second place in the AM class to Darren Doherty. A great drive there from Darren Doherty, and to be fair, he has pointed out in the chat that he was behind his teammate and holding position with Dan Moorey. Then Stuart P. Taylor there in P11. Then Travis Linscombe Hatfield completes our podium for the AM class. The American driver, a great drive from the privateer, and it's Nigel Stock followed by Lamont Weather in P14, Davide Favo P15, as we can see the Racing Team Astra drivers here flashing their lights. Mark Baker P16, Jack Wyborn P17, William Fold P18, then Elwin Sykes P19, that's P7 in the AM class. Paul Williams in the end coming home in P20, completing our top 20. My goodness, what a race, ladies and gentlemen. To be fair, it's our driver who finished in the win. In the overall win for Alistair Kirk, a fantastic drive, but I do wonder with regards to Gareth Williams whether he will feel as though he could have had that win if only been able to hold on. And also for Paul Walton, what a disastrous moment to lose out so considerably. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to prepare for our post-race interviews. We'll be back in approximately 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back for our post-race interviews of our winners in the sprint race, and we're going to be hearing first and foremost from Alistair Kirk, who I believe this is his maiden win in the series. Let's hear what he's got to say about his maiden win. Hello, Alistair, can you hear me?
Hiya, mate, you okay?
All good here, Alistair, but more importantly, focusing on yourself. Congratulations on the win in the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring, and I believe your maiden win in the series. How's it feel to be on the top step of the podium?
Yeah, no, it's really good. During practice, I was quite slow, to be honest. I wasn't feeling that well with the track on the car. But in qualifying, had a really good lap. Obviously, was on pole and got a good jump through turn one. But obviously, the BMW of Gaz was always going to get past me into turn two. And then really, it was just about being consistent and not trying to, I didn't want to get him really too involved with Gaz and Paul there. Obviously, they're fighting for the title, but no, I wanted to win, so I did what I could and passed Gaz to win. So it was good.
Now, just taking us through that three-way dynamic between yourselves, as you were saying, with regards to, whilst you started on pole, by the time you got to turn two, Gareth Williams was ahead. How did you play it out in your mind in terms of that back and forth? You want to go on the offensive versus Gareth Williams, but at the same time, you've got Paul Walton in equal machinery trying to come through behind you, and you're in that sandwich of, you've got to attack, but if you attack, you leave yourself open to being exposed. How do you balance it?
Well, to be honest, it's as you said, I didn't really want to get involved too much. If I'd have made a mistake, I'd have just let Paul gone through and tried to kind of stay out of the way. But I'm not here to take part. I want to win. And it's just a fine line of being aggressive but not being too aggressive. I think as when I passed Gaz, I got a really good run out of two, down into three, and I don't really know what happened. I think he kind of came over on me a bit and tried to squeeze me, and we ended up touching, and kind of it unsettled his car, and which kind of gave me enough to overtake him, and just get the win. And then they battled, and I kind of pulled away a bit. So yeah.
We saw you pull away in the end. I'm sure as we were counting down the laps and the time, the grin on your face must have been growing as you could see they were battling and the lead was just gradually moving more and more in your favour.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was on the I was in Discord with Stuart, my teammate, and I was stressing so much. Just I was just like, oh my god, I'm actually might be able to do this. And he was streaming at the time, and all you can hear is like, oh my god, Stu, oh my god, Stu, oh my god, Stu, like, and he was just like, keep calm, keep calm, keep calm. But it's still part of it. All the nerves and things. It's yeah, it's just natural, I guess. So it was good.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. And now looking ahead to the feature race, what was the plan for the feature?
Plan really was just to stay consistent again. I mean, obviously, I dropped. Well, I had a really bad Le Mans, so I dropped from, I think it was P3 or 4 in the championship to P8. So I kind of was a few positions maybe ahead on the grid than what I should have been with pace wise, which was kind of helped me out really. And I just yeah, it was a plan just to try and work my way through the field as quickly as possible and not do anything too silly really. So.
I see. Well, with that, we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature race. But until then, congratulations on your maiden win in the series. And well, we look forward to seeing you back out on the tarmac shortly.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
So hearing there from Alistair Kirk, very happy with his maiden win and also the nerves towards the end, as he was saying there, that excitement at the thought of getting his maiden win and was securing it, indeed in emphatic fashion, but in the end as well, knowing that at the end of the day, he's trying to battle between the two major championship contenders, but who knows, perhaps this will spur on a major championship charge from Alistair Kirk and see him put the pressure on the others around him as time goes on. Well, with that, we now come to our winner in the AM class, and that is Stefan Wessels, and let's bring him into the interview room. Hello, Stefan. Hello, Stefan, can you hear me?
Hey, Paul, yeah, loud and clear.
Stefan, congratulations on another win in the sprint race in the AM class. How does it feel to take the win at the Red Bull Ring?
Oh no, it was a good race, man. I enjoyed it. It was a bit on your stream. You mentioned how tricky it is racing with the pro guys. So I had 3 pros right in front of me, all battling each other. I didn't want to get involved in that, but initially it was tricky because I also had Darren right in my tail, well, next to me in one corner. So yeah, it was difficult, but as it spread out, I could just sit back and yeah, it wasn't really much of a race from that point on, but I'm happy to take the win.
Well, I do have to ask, with that, and particularly Darren Doherty, we saw that this time in particular, with regards to where you qualified compared to your peers in the AM class, there was not too much space between yourself and Darren Doherty, and very quickly, the pro drivers between the two of you moved out the way. And I think it was the opening 3 minutes, the two of you were almost now nose to tail on circuit. Just how did you manage that? Because we saw you open the gap back up, but there was a time where it was sort of really having to put the hammer down. Was it the case that you put in a couple of qualifying style laps, or was it just managing and upping the pace as you went?
To be honest, I think I had maybe one lap without anyone in front of me where I actually could do a proper lap that whole race. So lap 1 was a case of obviously starting in between the pro guys. So there was a couple of guys trying to get through quite quickly. That meant I was compromised coming out of turn 2, which had Darren right up next to me, but I had an inside line going to 3, so I just kept it calm, stayed ahead of him, and there was I think Rick Jansen. Everybody went off the start light. He went off the green light. There was a bit of a confusion there, and he jumped about 20 cars at the start. So what ended up happening was he was getting overtaken 1-for-1 kind of thing, and I think he made a little mistake, and that made me be able to get past him, and he slotted in between myself and Darren, and that from there on, Darren got caught up behind him, and I kind of went to the next pro group, and I got caught up behind them, and we were just sitting there, not trying to. We were first and second in our classes without. We weren't fast enough to blast past the guys. So the problem is you might be a tenth quicker, but a tenth is not enough. There's long straights, long slipstreams here, so you might be able to get past the pro guy, but the very next corner is going to slipstream you, and he's going to be diving on the inside again. So there's really no point.
No, definitely, that makes sense, and I can see the logic within that, and I'm sure many of our viewers will, in the idea that when you don't have that outright pace advantage, it's pointless trying to force your way through, particularly against drivers who are not in the same class as yourself. But now, looking ahead to the feature race, given the fact that, once again, you find yourself starting at the back of the Anfield, and how powerful the slipstream is at the Red Bull Ring, are we potentially looking at a overcut or an undercut from yourself?
You're gonna have to wait and see. It's yeah, you're gonna have to wait and see. Keep an eye on the beginning of lap 2.
Will do.
Any case, yeah. You're gonna have to wait and see.
All right, then we will. But until then, thank you very much for joining us in the interview room, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature race.
Cool. Thanks, man. Nice to chat to you next week again.
Hopefully. All the best.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Hearing there from Stefan Wessels, very happy with his performance in the sprint race, but you could hear that sort of tactical nature with regards to having to balance the offense versus the pro drivers around him versus managing that gap to Darren Doherty, and the fact that a lot of respect mentioned there for his pros around him and also for Darren coming up through the field and giving him pursuit. But now looking ahead to that feature race, I'll be interested to see what sort of strategy Stefan Wessels employs in order to try and jump himself up through the AM order and give himself that victory if he is able to seize it. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be back in approximately 8 to 10 minutes time for the build-up to the feature race. Until then, we're going to be getting things set up and making sure we do not see the same technical issue as previously seen in the sprint race, but we'll be right back just in 10 minutes time. Until then, don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss the feature. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we are straight into the gridding process for the race, for what is the second race of tonight's proceedings. It is the feature race. So remembering, of course, that it will be our pro drivers who start ahead of our AM drivers based on reverse championship order going into this round. Apologies, it's not quite as long as a build-up we actually were expecting, but we are taking what we've got, and it is the case we are going racing very shortly. I believe it will be Rick Jansen who takes us away from pole, and alongside him will be the TGC Racing Ferrari. I believe that is Stuart Taylor alongside, and then behind we do have Jamie Dorian. Alongside him will be William Foyle there. As you can see, William Foyle parts up. Then it will be Nigel Stock and Paul Williams, and there will be Stefan Albanese. My apologies, it'll be Paul Williams, then Paul Williams, then Nigel Stock, followed by Stefan Albanese, Lambert Wedder, and then it is Alistair Kirk, followed by Paul Scott, Matthew Prouting, then Josh Wiggins, followed by Dan Moorey, Paul Walton, and then it will be Gareth Williams. Meanwhile, in the AM class, taking us away, it will be what is, at the end of the day, Jack Wyborn, and he will be ahead of what is Liam Tack, Chris Keenan just behind him. And then we've got Travis Linscombe, Hatfield, Mark Sykes, Elwyn Sykes, Darren Doherty, Gareth Williams, Davide Favo, Mark Baker, Stephen Vessels, and Sean Shute, who starts right from the back today as he is debuting in this series as of tonight. So he does not gain any advantages, and he'll be starting right at the back as we're about to go racing then for an hour around the Red Bull Ring circuit. Of course, that all-important strategic element. Let's see where those pit stops come, and there'll be the big question: do you overcut or do you undercut? And can you find yourself coming out of some traffic as Rick Jansen gets us away very shortly? And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, we are going races. Rick Jansen takes us up to the green line and gets on the throttle, and you can see immediately Stuart Taylor going as well as they go on the start-finish line as they charge up towards turn number one. We can see the profile making the way on in. We've got a 4-wide situation here, in fact 3 wide, as we can see there. It's the case of Stefan Albanese gaining 2 places at the price of 1 against William Foyle and Jamie Dory. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it's Jack Wyborn who is ahead of what is Liam Tack as they come through the opening corner, followed by Chris Keenan a bit further back. And what about elsewhere down the order? We can see the Racing Team Astra drivers here, 4 of them at the rear of your picture, and it's the mad dash between all of them as Mark Baker's in amongst them, and Elwyn Sykes gaining the most out of the group. As we are a bit further up the road here, we can see it's Matthew Prouting who's going very slowly, and Gareth Williams versus Paul Walton. He's already got the place of the Paul Walton as Gareth Williams as they make their way out of the opening corner and head down towards turn number 3, or the opening corners I should say, and now they come charge on down. But look a little bit ahead, that's Alistair Kirk on the charge out the inside with some slight connectivity issues it would seem for Alistair Kirk, but it looks like he's keeping relatively stable right now. As meanwhile we've got Josh Wiggins here also trying to hold off what is Paul Scott, and he gets it done, or does he, as they come through the corner. I think Josh Wiggins has just about got this one held together as they make their way out of turn number 5 and down towards 6-7 they come, and as they make their way through 6 you can see Wiggins just hold off Paul Scott for the time being, but it's not looking easy for Josh Wiggins as he holds on for now. But will there be an opportunity later on for what is Paul Scott and Matthew Prouting to go for us? He's going to try and go around the outside here of Nigel Stock as they make their way through turn number 8, and he's going to go fully in. He just about gets it done. A very brave move. Not something I would do on the opening lap of an hour race, but he gets it done. So after 1 lap, it is Rick Jansen leading from Stuart P. Taylor, followed by Stefan Albanese, battling side by side with William Foyle as they come up into turn number 1 for the second time asking. William Foyle gains the position. There's a tap on the rear end, and Stefan Albanese has to back off. Then Jamie Dory P5, followed by Lambert Wedder P6 as Jamie Dory tries to squeeze up the inside here at Lambert Wedder. They go 3 wide in the run up towards turn number 2. Meanwhile, further down, I'm hearing that Stefan Vessels. Hold up a second, what's happened to Stefan Vessels? He's been involved in an incident with Travis Linscombe over Hatfield, and they didn't even get onto lap number 2. But it looks though the 2 drivers have been involved in one, and that is the AM Championship leader who is down and into the pits and a lap down on the field as he's got to repair the car with a fast repair. And my goodness, well, Vessels said watch out for something. We did not expect that in terms of that incident. Unfortunately, we can't bring you the replay, but what I can tell you is that it's the case that Stefan Vessels' this race has now just taken a very tricky turn for perhaps the worst he can possibly have, but we know how much of a fighter he is, and the South African will be looking to come back. But meanwhile, speaking of battling and fighting back, Stefan Albanese trying to battle back with Jamie Dory here as we ride on board with the BMW driver here from DRS Esport, and we can see, oh goodness me, is that Rick Jansen off? That is Jansen off into the gravel there, and Jansen get it very, very wrong and now that means that Josh Williams will go in place. Indeed, most of the drivers was Janssen rejoins, and he rejoins on the inside of the exit at turn number 2, and he does so safely, and it means that he drops to the back now of what is the Pro Pack. Well, I say that, there's one driver who's been into the pits already, and that's Gareth Williams. He's already pitted. Now, surely Gareth Williams has had something go wrong with the car, because it looks as though right now he's made a pit stop very early on. I think that's to repair some damage on that car, because it has not gone right, but that does mean that Gareth Williams, our championship leader in the Pro class, has had his race turned completely upside down. Meanwhile, in the lead of the AM class, and having a very positive race right now is Jack Wyborn as he makes his way through turn number 1. You can see behind there Liam Tack just phasing in and out of existence very briefly, but Liam Tack in P2 in the AM class, and meanwhile you've got Chris Keenan just behind him as they make their way up towards turn number 2. Travis Linscombe Hatfield, I can see out my commentary box, is coming into the pit lane to take a repair stop, so that is the involvement of the damage he's picked up in the instant with Stefan Wetzels, but we can see here as they make their way through. I think Liam Tack has had a disconnect. In fact, he's disconnected from this race and dropped down, so that's engine issues with the car, which is very unfortunate here for Liam Tack, and that's put him out of contention. But meanwhile, it's the case that Mark Sykes here, who was seeing the Next Gen Racing orange driver, makes his way down towards turn number 3. We haven't really talked much about the English driver as he goes a bit deep there into turn number 3, but he brings it back on, just maybe loses 2 places at the price of 1 mistake. Meanwhile, Dan Moorey, just up the road, has had a major incident. Dan Moorey, the Austrian esports driver, who did so well in what was the sprint, he's into the wall at turn number 6. And my goodness, the Red Bull Ring circuit is taking no prisoners in this race. It is taking people left, right and centre. As we do see Liam Tack return, his connectivity has returned, so he's not retired from the race. My apologies, folks. He seemed to be out for so long, we thought we'd lost him, but we haven't lost the Briton as he makes his way on through. He's P2 in the AM class, just to clarify. But as he makes his way on down, we look a little bit further back, and what a mental start indeed, as Fujiwara says in the Twitch chat. And as they make the way across that timeline once again, we can see now how it's the case. Well, with Elwood Sykes and Sean Shute running nose to tail here, and they go for the change of places here. Shute on his debut, gaining a good number of places here as the racing team Astro comes through and picks up another position in the AM class. He's now up to P7, having started from the back, and has gained quite considerably as he makes his way now down towards turn number 2 as he roars on down. He carries on and makes his way up through. Gareth Williams, meanwhile, after that pit stop, that very early pit stop, it's the fastest man on circuit right now, as we're hearing Dan Moorey is coming out of the pits as well. Now all drivers charging on up through turn number 2 once again here, and we can see that Gareth Williams, and well, we can see there it's a statement from Wes Pecco in the YouTube chat to say there was a large incident between Gareth Williams and Paul Walton on lap number 2, which is what we've unfortunately missed. But that is one of the cases where the two of them came together. But meanwhile, as Stuart Taylor here deciding to take a bit of a rallycross line across turn number 6 and into 7. The TGC Racing driver here, well, you can see it's going to be the case that Alistair Kurt's going to take that place and go, okay, Stuart, if you're giving me the place, I didn't expect you to do it that way, but you're going to do it that way. And well, Taylor's brought the car back together, to be fair, but I don't think he expected to do a bit of rallycross at the Red Bull Ring. But who's to say you can't do it in a Ferrari 488 as he makes his way out of turn number 9 and now down towards the start finish line to go to lap number 5. We've had clarification with regards to there was an incident between Paul Walton and what was Gareth Williams. Walton's still racing on. It doesn't look as though, I can't see any visible damage to the car, and as a result he's soldiering on here, and I think the stewards might take a look at that one afterwards as we see Paul Williams run wide there out of turn number 1. And that's very unfortunate as he makes his way all the way up to turn number 2. He goes charging on up. He's going to lose so much time from running wide here, and he's literally going to let all of the lead Pro Pack just walk on through, and that is incredibly rough as they make their way through turn number 2. And another driver who we haven't really talked about, Darren Doherty, who's just mentioned in the YouTube chat, who's had a spin on literally lap number 2. He's dropped all the way down the order in the AM class on lap number 2, and he's fighting his way up and through right now. It has been a dramatic opening couple laps. We can't quite catch everything for you, ladies and gentlemen, but I can definitely tell you one thing, there's plenty more action to go. As we can see right now, Mark Baker looking for the move on Gareth Millsy. He's looking to the inside, he can't quite find it. Instead he has to wait for the opportunity once again as they make the one through. This is the battle for P3 within the AM class right now as they come roaring on down towards turn number 5 for what is for them the 5th time of asking. They come on through, and it is the case right now. Mark Baker trying to gain that ground as we ride on board here with the Team Tetra Rouge driver as he makes his way out the corner. You see Gareth Mills goes a little bit deep there. I mean, it's only about time as he looks the inside here. That was a very very late dash to the inside. I think it caught Gareth Mills by surprise there, but Baker saying that he does not want to wait anymore as they make their way up on their hill. Meanwhile, Mark Sykes has been in an incident. I think Davide Favo's also been involved in that incident. Well, Davide Favo's up to speed, but he's lost multiple places, and Mark Sykes has definitely been involved. My goodness, now that is absolutely rough on the Englishman who we've just seen, and well, both drivers coming into contact there, and indeed this race has been a little bit scrappy to say the least so far. But to be fair, everyone carrying on like the professionals they are as they make their way up towards turn number 2. We can see Paul Walton making his way on up the hill right now, and Nigel Stock just ahead of him before GT very strong in the straights here. But it's the case that Walton Lamborghini Huracan, perhaps the Huracan one of the most balanced cars in terms it has a little bit of everything and a very nice car to drive as they make their way down towards turn number 3. But you can see right now as all the drivers press on, it is the case pushing on down towards turn number 3. And well, Walton, he's trying to find a way on through. He's got Matthew Prout in each and ever close as Walton literally there on the gearbox of that Ford. He's almost there. He could reach out and touch the rear wing, but then he'd be subject to a £50,000 fine if this was FIA rulebook settings. But it is the case we don't quite follow the FIA rule. We should be thankful to know as they make their way through turn number 5 and down towards 6 as they come roaring on down the hill right now. Paul Walton waiting for that opportunity once again, and Matthew Proutin also just staying in the picture and trying to look for that opportunity as they come on through the corners. But coming from them to a little bit further up the order, I can tell you that Jamie Dorey, after making that early ground in the race, he's now the Barracuda with Next Gen Racing driver trying to find the way past William Foyle as they go up towards turn number 1 once again. Here they go on to lap number 7, and as we ride on board with what is Jamie Dorey here, right on the gyro camera here, which is one of the new cameras that we've got available for this time round. You'll see that it's going to swing with the G-forces on the car, and Jamie Dorey just trying to stay with his opponent right now as they make their way in towards turn number 2. And as they come into the braking zone here, not looking for that opportunity this time around as they make their way on through the corner. But here's the case, both drivers are really exploiting the width of the circuit, both of them in the Audi R8 V10. But you could see the difference in lines in terms of Dorey just going a bit too high on the sausage, and as a result losing the traction on exit, and that's given Foyle the opportunity to stay ahead just a little bit longer as they now roll down into turn number 3. And well, these two inseparable for now as we look back to the exterior pictures as they come on through. It's the case that Lamont Wedder, well, he's really held up here by Paul Scott, and you can see Paul Walton trying to come on through as they make their way out through 4 and up towards 5. They go Walton on the outside, Wedder on the inside here, and the Team Racing Netherlands driver will not want to give in. He'll want to try and stay in the hunt for a top 5 finish as they make their way through the left-hander. And now they come down towards turn number 6 as they make their way on through the corner. You can see Wedder really struggling for pace at this point, and the scramble behind in terms of Walton from Stock, from also Prouting, and a little bit further back Janssen, all of them closing up here. But to be fair to the Dutchman, he's keeping that car in front and he's doing everything he can right now to hold on, as we're unfortunately hearing that we've had the retirement by the sounds of things of Travis Linscombe Hatfield in this race, which is very sad to say, but we've lost one car already, and it is the American who was involved in the incident earlier on with Stefan Vessels at the end of lap number 1. The two AM drivers came together coming out of the final corner, it would seem. But look into the here and now with 10 minutes complete, we've still got 50 minutes to go as they make their way around and up and down the circuit once more. You can see a little bit further back there we do have what is Rick Janssen trying to look for a way past Prouting as they make their way up towards turn number 2. But Janssen's going to go to the outside this time. Now it's not uncommon to try this. He'll try to essentially force Prouting to outbrake himself, and then Janssen will go for the cutback, and you can see he tried to do it but he couldn't get the traction on exit. And what it's actually done, it's given Paul Williams here, the Briton, an opportunity to try and look for a shot at the move, but he can't quite find it. Instead it is the case the two BMW drivers forming a rolling roadblock down into turn number 3, and as they come through, Janssen on the inside here, he has got it done in the end. He got the momentum in the toe, and as they come out of 3 through 4, it's the case you're going to see Prouting is still there on the inside. No giving up by Prouting as they make their way through the corner. And Prouting actually holds on at this point, but Janssen now gets another cutback opportunity here. But the run through 5 into 6 is a bit of a smaller one, and the cutback's not as strong here unless he's able to essentially trail break the inside of the apex versus the opponent. You could see there Janssen just not able to get the car tucked in enough. And meanwhile up front, I can tell you that Alistair Kurt going for a move into the final quarter versus Jamie Dorey, and these two side by side on the run onto the next lap. Now as they come across that timeline, both of them powered by the same V10 engine that's supplied by Audi. You can see it's the case that Jamie Dorey makes the move back into the lead, and Alistair Kirk backed off there by looks of things. I think what Alistair Kirk is cognizant of, he doesn't want to risk losing out on a major points all here. He's already won one race tonight, and he'll be very pleased with that, and I think in his mind he'll want to make it 2 out of 2, but to do so he needs to play the long game here in these feature races, because he has still got the best part of what is 48 minutes to go, plus the final lap. And you see Kirk going for that inside here versus Dorey, both of them side by side coming into the corner. They emerge side by side with Dorey having more space to play with, and therefore he can get on the accelerator more confidently versus Kirk, and Dorey's going to be ahead. He's got his nose ahead in the run down towards turn number 2, but now they come down to the braking zone here, and you can see Kirk squeeze as much as possible to the outside here, and as they make their way through the corner, it does look as though Alistair Kirk just able to get the move done. Will Dorey come back in the run from 4 to 5? I think he's going to look for, he's going to go very late on the brakes here, does Jamie Dorey, and you see Alistair Kirk turns in, but what does he find? He finds the Next Gen Racing Audi R8 as they make their way now through turn at number 6. This is fantastic driving between the two of them. Non-stop side-by-side action as they come out of 7 and now make their way up the hill, but Alistair Kirk is back ahead for the time being. Of course, this is affording William Fuld the opportunity to open up that lead, and his lead is now up to what is 4.5 seconds. It started this lap at 3.7. It's now almost increased by a whole second over the course of the battling of this lap, as Alistair Kirk finally gets into the lead of this battle. He's up into P2, and Jamie Dorey has to settle and watch for the time being, but that's not to say he won't come back later on if he plays his cards right. And meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Stuart Taylor, another TGC Racing driver here, after his brief adventure across the grass at turn number 6. He's now back on form, and he's holding off Paul Scott for the time being as they make their way around on lap number 10. Now as they come charging up the hill here towards turn number 2, we can see it's the case of Stuart Taylor feeling that pressure from Paul Scott, but Paul Scott just holding on. He looks as though he's going to go for the move here. Does Paul Scott under braking? The Next Gen Racing driver goes for it very late in the day, and he gets it done there, but now it's all about the drag race down towards turn number 3, and we know that the Ferrari is a bit faster than the BMW on the straights now, based on the recent balance of performance change. And as they make their way down towards turn number 3, it's the case Scott's going to have to go very defensive here versus Taylor as they come through the corner, and Taylor's going to try and hold it around the outside, but he hasn't got the room to do so. It's a closing door, that outside line, and Paul Scott utilises it to make sure Taylor's stuck behind us. Meanwhile, Paul Walton continues to soldier on here in P6. Now meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you that in the lead of the AM class right now, and I believe we may have the incorrect livery showing for his car, is the privateer of Jack Wyborn as he makes his way through turn at number 6, just charging on in the DHL machine as he comes on down through turn at number 5 and into 6 here. I must say, it's a very fetching yellow livery with the DHL sponsorship on the side of it as he makes his way on through. Behind him in P2 in the AM class, and between the two of them is Joshua Wiggins, you do have Mark Baker, who's P14 overall, and he's soldiering on as the Team Tetra Rouge driver, and I'm sure he would love for an opportunity to try and take the win of this race as they make their way through turn at number 8 and in P3. And in one of his highest performances today is Gareth Williams here, who is holding on to P3 for the time being, although he does have Sean Shute close up behind him. You can see the debutant in the AM class, the Racing Team Astra driver Shute, just closing up rather rapidly here as they make their way onto another lap. This is the battle for what is P3 in the AM class, P15 overall as they make their way through the corner, but Shute goes a little bit wider. He's going to have to be careful those track limits, too many run wide, so he'll be in for a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, Paul Walton has got past what is Stuart Taylor as they make their way down towards turn at number 3 here, and Walton on the charge. He knows that there is a huge opportunity here today to pick up the win in the feature race after losing out on what was P3 on the final corner in the sprint. He lost the car right at the end, pushing too hard from what we've heard, and it's the case that Walton now trying to make it that he doesn't have a dismal day at the Red Bull Ring. He has something to take home, especially with the fact that his main championship rival Gareth Williams right now is all the way down in P17 overall, having had to make that early pit stop due to damage sustained in the contact between the two of them earlier on in the race. But as they make their way on through the corners right now, we see that Lambert Wedder meanwhile just behind, giving that pursuit, and Nigel Stock a bit further back here, and it's Stuart Taylor now who's in the firing line of the Dutchman as they make their way down through turn number 8. A bit further down the order, I'm hearing that Sean Shute has found his way past Gareth Mills as they make their way through. The two drivers have exchanged places here, and as they make their way over the ridge and down into it, it's the case that Gareth Williams behind will be looking to try and come past the two of them as quickly as possible. And Gareth Williams digging deep into this race and trying to hold on and get himself back into the top 10 at least of the Pro Class come the end of it. But meanwhile, further up the road, now this is very difficult for Jack Wyborn. You can see, look who's in the middle of the road. That's Joshua Wiggins in the Pro Class who's trying to come through, but Mark Baker on the inside. He looks at the move, but he runs over the curb, and goodness me, is that Lambert Wedder? That is Lambert Wedder into the wall, and I think Nigel Stock was also involved in an incident with Lambert Wedder there, as we were so focused on the battle for the lead of the AMP. Oh my goodness, and that's Sean Shute, who's just been in contact with what I think was Gareth Mills, and I'm not sure if Shute was going slowly there, or whether it was the case he's going at full speed and the contact was made, but multiple drivers involved in major collisions down from turn 1 down towards turn 2, and it is the case, it has shaken things up massively, and really right now I think both Jack Wyborn and Mark Baker will be thinking to themselves, okay, let's not battle for the rest of this lap. It seems as though everybody around us is losing their head and being involved in a major incident, and instead they're just waiting for the opportunity to go battling once again on the next lap. As you can see, this battle for the lead of the AM class is only getting closer, and well, as they make the way through right now, place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. It's two Ferrari drivers. Will it be Wyborn or will it be Mark Baker who's leading come the halfway point of this race? I'm going to put my money on, I think Mark Baker will feel that he's got a little bit under the hood, but I think that Jack Wyborn, to be fair, a very solid defensive driver. We'll wait and see. But meanwhile, into the pits comes Paul Walton from P4 of the Pro Class, and this is a critical pit stop now. I think Walton is going for the major undercut here. He's trying to pit early, get the pit stop out of the way, and then get back into the fight later on, as Jamie Dory goes hunting after Alistair Kirk here. Now, in terms of how this can play out, remember, we saw in the Apex Racing Academy lobby last night, the drivers who went for the undercut, it did not necessarily work out if they found themselves coming out in clear air and not having the slipstream to give them a bit of a boost on the straights. Meanwhile, if it was the case that if they had multiple drivers they were battling with, and those drivers worked together and slipstreamed together and went for the overcut, they came out ahead. Alternatively, going too long in the overcut, particularly with regards to fuel saving, can cost a lot of time, as Paul Walton has left the pit lane and he's come out in P21. That equates to what is effectively P12 in the Pro Class, and now we look back to this battle for P2 overall and P2 in the Pro Class, and we see it's Jamie Dory versus Alistair Kirk here as they make the way on through. But William Foyle, meanwhile, just being allowed to run away with it is the Crest Autosport driver as they make the way on through on lap number 13. Unlucky for some, but definitely for the top three. It's not bad luck for them. They're all enjoying the spoils of being on the top three positions right now, as meanwhile a bit further back down the road we can see that Paul Williams going on the offensive versus Rick Jansen, but behind them Matthew Broughting, who we ride on board with here, the BMW M4 driver, trying to find his way on through as they make their way up towards turn number 8, and as they come into the braking zone here, will we see a potential opportunity arise here for Broughty or for Williams? You'd see how close he is. No opportunity this time as they make their way on out of the corner, and as they come on through here, it's the case no driver makes a change. But what I can tell you has changed whilst that's been happening. Mark Baker has gained the lead of the M class. It didn't happen on camera, we've seen it off camera. It is the case that Mark Baker has got ahead of Jack Wyborn with Gareth Williams behind him, and only a little bit further back here, and here is the huge train of cars in the pursuit of the AM class lead, and you can see that just behind them Gareth Williams, there's Gareth Mills, the AM driver in P3, followed by Darren Doherty as they all come through. Liam Tack is into the pit, so you can see Gareth Williams flashing his lights furiously here. He knows he cannot afford to lose any time as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 2 once again. Now, how will they all navigate around one another? Well, Darren Doherty's got something to say about Gareth Mills as he comes roaring up the inside, and Jack Wyborn almost turns in to find a face on the Altitude Esports Irishman and Darren Doherty, and it's the case that the 281 drivers gained 2 places for literally one very late move on the brakes. My goodness, you couldn't have gone any later than that, but the Altitude Esports driver has found a way to do so, and that is absolutely astounding. I'm going to put it out there, folks, it's going to be one of the contenders for overtake of the season, because you do not see that very often, but that was timed to perfection as he makes his way on through now. And then meanwhile behind, Jack Wyborn in P3 will now be thinking, how on earth did that all just happen? He'll be going back in the pursuit shortly, and the same for Gareth Mills. He'll be thinking, so how on earth is Darren all the way up the road now compared to me, as they make their way through turn at number 7, and you've got Stefan Albanese quite a bit further back, as you can see just behind there. If you're wondering who the racing team Astra Ferrari is, that is Stefan Vettel's trying to unlap himself after losing out at the starter course, as Gareth Mills is all over the back of Jack Wyborn here as they come charging out to turn number 9. I'm going up towards turn number 1 once again. Here they come roaring on through. Stefan Albanese into the pits is the pro driver, but right now Gareth Williams are looking for that opportunity. He can't quite find it, but looking from their opportunities to the opportunities of Paul Williams versus Jansen. Paul Williams all the way out the inside there. We just caught that as it was happening. Paul Williams going in very, very tight to the apex, and it looks as though the Team Tetris pro driver here getting on with the job as he makes his way down. Stuart Taylor just ahead, to be fair, 1.5 seconds up the road. You can see Rick Jansen's not going to give this one up very soon, but he does a little sweep out and then decides, you know what, it's not worth it, I can't go for it. So the Team Racing Netherlands driver decides to back off and wait for another day as they make their way through 4 and up into 5. Now as they come on through here with 20 minutes of this race completed, or just over, it's the case you can see how Jansen just waited for that opportunity, being as patient as possible. As Dan Moorey has jumped to the pits. Unfortunately, we're hearing that Dan Moorey is having a lot of issues with the car, and I think it might be the case that Dan Moorey now is effectively what is a lap down on the majority of the field, if not further. As meanwhile, looking at our pictures here, we can see Matthew Prouted just continuing to breathe down the neck of Jansen as they make their way through the final pair of corners once again. It's a difficult place to overtake in Sector 3. The major overtaking opportunities are really in Sector 1 and sometimes in Sector 2, depending on how you play it out. But we're in the case in Sector 2 when you think about turns 2 and 3 being in that sector. But as they make their way up towards turn number 1, once again Matthew Prouted just waiting patiently here. I think he's having to play the long game. I don't think he feels he's got the ability to get past the 2 drivers in front and then make the breakaway. I think he's got to play the smart game, which is just wait for that opportunity. But I say that, I think he's seen it, and it is, he's had the double toe versus the single toe of Jansen, and it's now going to try and go all the way around the outside, but Jansen there just getting his elbows out with Prouting, both of them trying to squeeze one another, but Prouting goes around the outside. Now it's all about the bravery on the brakes down into turn 3. Will it be Prouting or will it be Jansen? Well, Prouting is ahead, he's got himself fully ahead, but will we see a change between these two as they make their way on down into the braking zone? And it looks so Matthew Prouting has got it done here as he makes sure that it's the case that Jansen cannot cut back. Matthew Prouting up to P7 overall and into lead this race as William Foyle, my goodness, literally as we thought it was all said and done towards the front for the time being, William Foyle has had a run-off at turn number 5 into 6, and our race leader in the pro class has got it wrong and drops all the way down to P4. Oh goodness, and that's the Crest Autosport driver who was driving so well in the opening third of this race, and how the tables have now turned with the fact he's got Paul Scott, Alistair Kirk and Jamie Dory as William falls into the pits. I think he's going to put on a new set of tyres by the looks of things, or at least have a look at, get the engineers to take a look at the car, because I do not think he's happy with the way the car is after that incident. We're looking from him to the battle for the lead now. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. We have got Jamie Dory battling with Alistair Kirk. Our winner in the sprint race of Alistair Kirk is looking on the inside. Jamie Dory, meanwhile, just trying to drag race his way past and hold on to that lead as they make their way down into turn number 2, into the heavy braking zone they go. And you can see the difference in the body language of the two cars. The Audi looks to be the car that's being driven more on edge. It just seems to have that ability to be driven more towards the limit, whereas the Lamborghini Huracan just looks very sturdy and stable by comparison. Two very unique machines as they make their way down into the braking zone for turn number 3 here. No change between them for the time being, as we've got pit stop season abound right now down the pits. A lot of drivers coming in before the halfway point. Rick Jansen, one of them, and we're hearing that Davide Favo has had an instant out of the circuit. He's had a spin at turn number 1. He's getting back up to speed here in P18. That's P18 class, and behind him is Rick Jansen, who's recently come out of the pit. And a little bit further back, you've got Mark Sykes there in a rather bruised Ferrari, just trying to get back up to speed as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. We look from them back to the battle for the race lead right now, the overall lead and the pro lead as they come roaring on down through turn number 8, and it's the case that Jamie Dory trying to hold off Alistair Kirk as they make their way on through the right-hander, and as they come through the corner, no change between these two so far as they make their way onto another lap. They go on to lap number 18, and as they go across that timeline, you can see Kurt looking for that move on the inside, but he can't quite find it for now. He's still got plenty of time to go. He doesn't need to get this move done early unless he thinks he's got the ability to make a breakaway. As they come up the hill now towards turn number 2, you can see it's the case that Alistair Kurt looking on the inside as they go roaring on up the hill. Will he be able to get it done? He's going to look for it. Jamie Dory's not going to be able to pull the doors shut this time. They both go as late as possible here, and you can see Jamie Dory taking as wide a line to give himself the straightest possible run out of the corner in the run down towards 3. I think he afforded Alistair Kirk too much track width there, and I think Kirk will now get his nose ahead and hold a nice tight inside line here. And as they come down here into the braking zone, Dory's going to try and go around the outside to inside. He's going to go for the cutback, but Alistair Kirk covers it off very nicely indeed. Alistair Kirk, our TGC Racing driver, is now up into the lead versus Jamie Dory, who's only a 10th behind. But will Dory come back into turn number 5? He looks for it. Alistair Kirk gives it the space, but it's a closing apex there, and I think it's the case that Dory knew he could only go so deep into the corner before turning his car into a missile as they make their way through 5 and 6 and into 7. And as they come out the corner, 2 more corners to go until they complete this lap. But Jamie Dory now having to go on the offensive here, and I think it is the case that for the time being he will be looking at the rear end of that Lamborghini and thinking how he can come back as they make their way on through. Meanwhile, in the battle for the lead of the AM class, I can tell you that Mark Baker is just ahead of Darren Doherty for the time being, with the Irishman closing up rather rapidly, only 8/10 separating the two of them. You've got them both in the screen there, as they make their way through turn number 7 and up towards 8. Mark Baker going over the crest of the ridge now. Darren Doherty just behind here, and it does look as though the two Ferrari drivers evenly matched at this point in time. Although looking at their lap times on that last lap, Mark Baker was 3/10 of a second faster, but it would seem on this lap it's the reverse, where Darren Doherty's a bit faster than Mark Baker as they both go across that timeline. We see their lap times update here again. Darren Doherty matching Mark Baker on this lap, in fact. Both of them on the 30.3s as they cross that timeline, go into turn 1 once again. Meanwhile, further back, Jack Wyborn has found his way past Gareth Mills in the hunt for a P3 in the AM class. This is P11 overall, with Gareth Mills in P12 behind as they make their way through turn number 1. You can see Gareth Mills gets a very good run out the corner as they make their way down towards turn number 2. It's going to be Gareth Mills on the inside. Mills is not giving up. The GM Racing driver here, the privateer, is not giving in as they make their way up towards the braking zone. He wants this podium, and as they come into turn number 2, he's all the way on the inside, but you can see Wyborn went for the cutback, but Mills took it so carefully through the apex that Wyborn had to back off massively, and as a result was not able to capitalise, and Gareth Mills gains the place again. Meanwhile, Paul Walton just behind, after making his pit stop early on, is now trying to crusade his way up through the field. We can see Sean Shute behind there in P14, the AM driver just behind Paul Walton. Paul Walton right now, in terms of his placement in the Pro class, is in P9 to give you an idea. So as a result, Walton trying to make as much time as possible, because every driver ahead of him in the Pro class has yet to officially pit, and that's what he's trying to close up on. He wants to gain a pit. He wants to gain that advantage through the undercut that he's done compared to his peers as he makes his way on through. As he comes charging on through the corners right now and making his way up towards turn number 8. We look back to the battle for the AM class P3 position just ahead, and it is the case I think Wyborn's having to wait for another opportunity a bit later on. As meanwhile, looking further up the road, we can see Matthew Prouting now onto the back of Stuart Taylor as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 2. Now we know that Prouting is very daring on the brakes, and he's very daring here as he makes his way in, and Taylor, you can see, turned in and then noticed the front panel, I presume, of the BMW coming on through and decides, you know what, oh, well, I've got to open the steering wheel, because he is there and he's made the corner. And it is the case that Prouting, with another late dash to the inside, has got the move done there on the braking up into P4. And now as he makes his way through turn number 3, I think Prouting, now 7 seconds down on Paul Scott, will be looking for that opportunity to go hunting down the podium of the Pro class as the drivers make their way on through once again as they come through turn number 5. But meanwhile, further up the roads, we're hearing that Chris Keenan's just leaving the pit lane right now. And here it is Chris Keenan just making his way back onto the road very shortly down in P24. That is P10 in class right now, as he's going to have a number of drivers on the lead lap come on through. Well, as they make their way on through, it is the case that coming to the end of another lap and coming to the end of lap number 20, going on to 21, it's Alistair Kirk still leading this race. But look at those lap times. 29.8 on the pair of them. Jamie Dory only 400 slower. It is the case that whilst Jamie Dory did lose out versus Alistair Kirk, he is not giving up on that opportunity to win here, and it is the case that the Next Gen Racing driver has got the bit between his teeth, but I think Alistair Kirk has got a lot more riding in his mind. He wants the back-to-back wins here today. He wants both wins in the sprint and the feature. That would mean so much to the TGC Racing driver, there's no doubt about that, as they make their way through 2, and as they come charging down towards turn number 3 right now, they're inseparable for the time being. But I would say that Jamie Dory is probably using this as an opportunity to fuel save. He thinks, okay, I can't beat Kirk, by simply outpacing him on track. But if I fuel safe behind him, then I can undercut him through the pit stop while I have a shorter stop compared to Kirk, or at least that would be the plan. But will Kirk be driving a little bit slower perhaps in order to save some fuel as well? Be interested to see. They're both lapping right now. These two are the fastest guys of anybody out on circuit other than Gareth Williams, who's in P8, but we believe he's got another pit stop to make because of the incident that occurred at the start of the race. So Gareth Williams is the only other driver regularly in the 29s as things currently stand, and is on the lead lap. Stefan Vessels is also in the 29s, but he's a lap down. Is the AM Championship leader all the way down in P23 overall, P10 in class. But right now these two are absolutely flying, and they are giving no quarter as they make their way around once again onto another lap here. Meanwhile, further down the road, I can tell that Jack Wyborn, he's got Paul Walton ahead. Paul Walton has found his way past the AM driver, has the pro, and now Wyborn has got to deal with Sean Shute, who's tucked in very close behind him as they make their way through turn number 6. We ride on board the gearbox here of Jack Wyborn as they come on through. You see Wyborn going a little bit deep there on the exit of 6. He brings the car back together, however, coming out to 7, and as they make their way over the crest of the ridge and down into 8, it does look as though that Wyborn just keeping it condensed, keeping it together right now, but he has lost out in chasing down what is Gareth Mills for the time being. But meanwhile, I'm hearing that Paul Williams has had a major moment. Now, Paul Williams, what on earth has happened to him? Well, he's into the wall there. I think he's had a spin at turn 1. And Paul Williams, who was running in P6 in the pro class, and he's yet to make a pit stop, has now dropped all the way down to what is P8 in the pro class, P10 overall. And that's a disaster for the Team Tetra Rouge driver. And it is the case that the baton for Team Tetra Rouge has passed from him being the lead driver in the Team Tetra Rouge team to Mark Baker in this race, who the AM leader right now in P8 overall, leading the AM class. He flashes lights there. What is Liam Tack, who is a lap down, and as they make their way through turn number 3, you can see the number 253 driver just wants to get on with things. As meanwhile, Stuart Taylor's had an off at turn number 3, and Stuart Taylor, who was going so well in the top 5, has now dropped down the order. He hasn't had as big an incident as Paul Williams, but a number of pro drivers really getting caught out by the Red Bull Ring circuit, and this is quite a surprise, and it's not a welcome one to be sure for many, albeit there might be some drivers who are rubbing their hands together and grinning at the prospect of picking up points where others have faltered. But as they make their way around right now, Stuart Taylor with a rare moment there, and as a result now trying to build up the momentum once again. As meanwhile, further up the road, I want to tell you that Gareth Williams, he is wasting no time in hunting everybody down right now, knowing that he's got to do another pit stop. He is chasing down Josh Wiggins, and he is all over the back of the RD Simsport drivers, the next gen racing drivers. They make their way onto another lap. They go onto lap number 23, and as they do, you can see it's the case that Gareth Williams literally tucked in to the slipstream off the back of that Porsche, using the Porsche to clear a hole in the air. And now as they charge up towards turn at number 2, can he find a way on through us? Hold up a second, I'm hearing, my goodness, is that Mark Baker? Mark Baker into the wall almost at turn number 1. In fact, I think he has hit the wall there. Mark Baker, and he's parking up. Mark Baker, who was literally, and he's got a crooked suspension on the front wheel. He's going to have to do repair work, which means now it is Darren Doherty who is your leader in the AM class. This circuit is taking no prisoners in both classes, and Darren Doherty is leading the AM class now with a sizable advantage over Gareth Mills, who's in P2, and Jack Wyborn, who's in P3. Doherty is P7 overall. His two opponents for the podium are P11, P12. This is a huge opportunity for the Austrian esports driver. And my goodness, the surprises just keep on coming in, and they're not welcome ones, I can be sure of that. As meanwhile, Jack Wyborn here finds himself caught up behind William Foyle. William Foyle has just passed Jack Wyborn. You can see Sean Shute is tucked in well behind as well. The two AM drivers here inseparable, it would seem, as the pros try and make their way through. And you can see it's the case that right now as they come on through, they are losing time by being in this situation. Now as they make their way through turn at number 6 and head up towards 7, I do wonder at this point when we are going to see more pit stops. We have had a little bit of a lull in the pit stops recently, although Mark Baker, of course, into the pits with the damage he picked up at turn at number 1, and the fact he's been reset a lap as a result of the damage. But we can see that meanwhile Jack Wyborn, as he makes his way through turn number 8 and down towards 9, he has got Sean Shute all over the back of him as we ride on board here with the AM driver chasing after what is effectively P3 in class. And as they make their way up the hill here, you can see Wyborn going a little bit defensive. They're just sinking into the centre of the circuit to say, Look, don't come through this time. And Shoot goes a bit deep and locks the front brakes up. Wyborn, to be fair, goes deep, but not as deep. And Shoot, I think, in the dirt here, just getting that huge wash on the back of Wyborn under braking and missing his braking point by about 10-15 metres. And as a result, Shoot making a mistake. He pulled it back together, but those front brakes are going to be feeling the pinch in terms of the temperature he's put through them because they're going so deep under braking. And Shoot going on the offensive immediately here as he makes his way out of two. He wants to get back up behind Wyborn as quickly as possible. He does not want to lose out after that mistake. As meanwhile, into the pits they both come. It's the two race leaders. It's Alistair Kirk and Jamie Dorey as they make the way on in. They both come in literally nose to tail. Surely this is going to be close. Paul Scott's on the right of your picture there. He's going across the timeline to take the lead of this race. But this is the battle for the lead, we believe, in terms of strategy. How will this play out? As Paul Scott comes on through, Jamie Dorey into his box as well. We're waiting to see here which driver is going to move first as Matthew Prouting comes through at the bottom of your picture. They're going to P2, but he's yet to pit. Which one of them will leave the pit lane first? We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, Josh Wiggins coming on through here with where's Gareth Williams just behind him. And as he makes his way on through, it's going to be, it's literally Alistair Kirk who just comes out ahead of Jamie Dorey once again. It is the case that Dorey being tucked in behind and fuel saving, it's not quite worked out. But as they both come out the pit lane, they are literally as they were only moments ago. This is incredible between the two of them. They literally are inseparable right now. And Jamie Dorey immediately staying on the racing line and not really looking to try and hound that slipstream anytime soon. As meanwhile, Jack Wyborn and David A. Farvo into the pits, the two AM drivers. That drops Jack Wyborn out of P3 for the time being in the AM class. I mean, Sean Shoot is up into P3 into the podium paying position. As we can see, Jamie Dorey now pressing on to try and hunt down what we would believe would be the eventual retained lead of the feature race after all the pit stops. That's Alistair Kirk. Meanwhile, further up the road, Gareth Williams continues to chase after Josh Wiggins. We do believe that all of our top five have yet to pit in the Pro class, and Darren Doherty, our lead and driver, of course, is yet to pit. So we've got a lot of pit stops still to come. This could all turn different ways yet. We will have to wait to see what exactly is going to happen. As we're hearing that David A. Farvo is just leaving the pits. Jack Wyborn is still in the pits. I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, I think Wyborn may be deciding to change some tyres. He's had a very long pit stop, a 45-second pit stop, as he's just left his pit box right now. I think that is to change the tyres. So it's the case that Jack Wyborn going all in as we're seeing that Darren Doherty's into the pits. And meanwhile, Gareth Williams comes on for us. I believe that was Joshua Wiggins with a slow down penalty for track limits, which he had to serve. So Gareth Williams has gained the position there. Of course, not the way he would have wanted to do it, in terms of he would have wanted to battle on through, but sometimes you've got to take the wins as they come. And Josh Wiggins now will go hunting after Gareth Williams as they make their way up the hill once again. But one big question you may be asking at this point, we saw him pit very early. What has happened with Paul Walton? Well, he's come out in effectively P9 so far when all is said and done. Hold up a second. Is that Jamie Dorey? And what is Alistair Kirk changing places here? That is Stuart Taylor coming between the two of them. Now, what on earth has happened here? Because we saw only moments ago how close they were. I think it's Alistair Kirk has found a way past his teammate, and they're going to try and use a little bit of team tactics here with Stuart Taylor yet to pit. And this is the strength of essentially going long. It means they can do much like what Red Bull did time and time again in the 2021 Formula 1 season. It's the case that TGC Racing are using team orders here to try and box in Jamie Dorey as they make their way through turn 5, just to cost him some time as they make their way through. It's a little bit of a door up there as they come out of 5 and into 6 as they make their way through the corner. Jamie Dorey has got clear of Stuart Taylor as they emerge from the corner. It's all fair and legal. They've been racing as fairly as possible, but it has cost Jamie Dorey massively. You can see he's immediately got to go defensive here, because otherwise if Stuart Taylor gets back ahead, it's going to cost him so much time. And Dorey losing the rear end slightly there, just a little wobble under braking. This means so much to him chasing down Alistair Kirk in the lead of this race. My goodness. And right now Jamie Dorey has navigated one of the biggest tests of this race, and that is finding his way past the TGC number 2 driver of Stuart Taylor as they'll make their way up into turn number 1. It is the case that the lead TGC driver of Alistair Kirk, well, he will be thinking himself right, I've just got to break away now. Jamie Dorey has lost out, and you can see Dorey knowing that Stuart Taylor's going to come back at him. This is not ideal for the Next Gen Racing driver. He will not want this with 20 minutes to go. He's now in a back and forth of you to me to you with a driver who's yet to pit, and I think Stuart Taylor now just wants to tuck him behind. Now Gareth Mills has just had his pit stop and he's come out in P2, well, he's in P2 at the moment in class, as we see Darren Dotley coming on through here, and this is the Austrian esports driver who pitted a bit earlier on. He was the leader in the AM class before the pit stops occurred to the AM leaders. He's going to come out in P2 in the AM class with Sean Shute just up the road, who is yet to pit, and when I say he's just up the road, he's 20.8 seconds up the road, but that is just up the road in terms of a pit stop time. And meanwhile Gareth Mills has just come out behind, so Gareth Mills in fact has gained quite considerably in the pit stop window here, and he's looking very good for P2 in the AM class right now as they make their way on through. But indeed, as you say there, TGC Racing Live, it is the case. Teammates helping the leader out in the terms of Stuart P. Taylor and what is Alistair Kirk, and it's all fair. There's no debate about that. It's very good teamwork and great racing shown by not just yourselves but also Jamie Dory. As meanwhile Paul Scott into the pits here, he's made his way on in, so it means we've only got our top three now who've yet to pit in the pro class, as Alistair Kirk goes on to another lap here, and the gap between himself and Jamie Dory is 1.9 seconds. The damage has been done, and the TGC Racing driver at this point will be breathing a sigh of relief. Now can Dory come back at him? That is the big question. There are still 18.5 minutes plus the final lap of this race to go. It's not over yet. Do not count it out yet. It is the case that Jamie Dory, we know when he sees that the lead is ahead of him, he will go for it with feverish endeavour. Can he come back? That is the big question as he makes his way on through. Meanwhile, looking further down the road as Matthew Prouting, I think, has had a moment. Oh, goodness me, and that's Matthew Prouting for a spin at turn number 3 onto 4. And he was yet to pit as well. And that's Gareth Williams coming on through here. So that's going to help Williams considerably, because he will gain a place at the circuit before we believe he has his second stop, as they make their way down towards turn number 6. And as they come on through, is the situation right now whereby Prouting just pressing on and trying to gain as much time back as possible after that mistake. You can see Gareth Williams flashing his lights, I think, to signal he's coming into the pit, or I would presume that's to do something. She wouldn't normally be flashing if your lead driver. Indeed, that was to say he's coming into the pits, all three of them in here, and Josh Wiggins following in. I think he wants to be with this pack. He wants the tow, because we know how slow that Porsche can be on the straights by comparison, as they all come in sequence. And that is Alistair Kirk now coming on through to retake the lead of this race, with Jamie Dory 2 seconds back and losing a bit more time as Alistair Kirk goes back into the lead, and now they come charging on through. But hold up a second, is that Joshua Wiggins literally coming on through? Well, I was going to say Joshua Wiggins should be pit exiting. He's just parked up in the pit, as we also see Stuart Taylor coming in, and we've also got Liam Tack there as they all come on in. But meanwhile Gareth Williams is going to be the first of them to leave. He just comes out ahead of Matthew Prouting, and Wiggins is tucked in behind as we ride on board here with Joshua Wiggins, who will be feeling so much frustration. He couldn't undercut in the pits, but he has got the slipstream of the two cars ahead of the two BMWs, and that will be some relief that he's still got them to slipstream off of as we ride on board with the Porsche 911 driver in P8 overall and P8 in class as they go charging up the hill once again. And do remember, William Foyle with that mistake earlier on, as we see Josh Wiggins coming very heavy on the brakes here, but not enough in order to be able to go for a move. But in terms of William Foyle, he's just up the road from these guys. He's not too far ahead. Hold up a second. Is that I'm hearing that Jamie Dory's had an off. Jamie Dory's had an off at turn number 3, and he's lost out considering he's dropped down to P4, and that is a huge upset, as now it's William Foyle just behind him. I can't tell, well, we can't take a look back at exactly what's happened. What I'm hearing in my ear from one of the trackside marshals is that he had a spin, and we've seen so many drivers have a spin coming through turn at number 3, and it's very unfortunate as they make the way on through. As he comes charging on down towards turn number 8, it is the case that right now Jamie Dory will need to try and find a way to recover this, as he's released Alistair Kurt, and he's now behind Paul Scott and Paul Walton as they make their way on through. Now Paul Walton, meanwhile, well, he doesn't have the opportunity, I don't think, to win this one unless he can pull out an absolutely colossal run on Alistair Kurt on the final 15 minutes, but it is the case that he will be able to go hunt down Paul Scott here and come home with Peter, and Walton needs this so desperately right now to arrest what has been a horrific form of momentum. Le Mans hit him hard, and it's the case the sprint race here has hit him hard as well. But if he can finish in P2 today, that would be a huge boost to the morale of Artie Simpson, and indeed to his personal morale as he makes his way out to turn number 2. But he's got a way to go, and Paul Scott is no easy driver to overtake, we can assure you of that, as they make their way down towards turn number 3. Now as they come down a bit further in the rear of your picture, you can see William Foyle closing up to his fellow Audi driver, but they're not part of the same team, and that is Jamie Dory. Jamie Dory with that spin at this corner only moments ago, and now William Foyle trying to go onto the offensive in trying to get out to P4. Further back, Gareth Williams holding on to the lead of this train for P6 with what is Matthew Prouting and Joshua Wiggins behind as they all come through. That's Mark Baker between them and the pack ahead. Mark Baker being a lap down after breaking the suspension of the car coming out to turn number 1 with a collision with the wall. But as they make the way on through right now, it's heating up in the top 5 and indeed for the top 10 of the Pro Class come the end of this race. Now as our drivers make their way on through, a driver who we haven't really spoken about recently is Lambert Wedder, who is chasing down Paul Williams right now for what is the final spot in the overall top 10, but in terms of the battle for P9 of the Pro Class, as just ahead of him is Darren Doherty here, and the leader of the AM Class, the Austrian esports driver, is in a very comfortable position right now as he makes his way on through turn number 7 and up towards 8, looking very comfortable indeed, as we have had 5 retirements in this race, ladies and gentlemen, and those have been Liam Tack, Rick Jansen, Stefan Albanese, Dan Moorey and Travis Linscombe Hatfield, all drivers who've lost out at some point in this race through incidents or other moments, but it is unfortunate we've lost them. We've still got 22 drivers racing, we've still got 14 minutes to go plus the final lap, and anything can still happen in this race at the Red Bull Ring, the Spielberg circuit, known for throwing surprises. Will we see any last minute ones with the time we've got remaining as they all make their way on through? But Darren Doherty right now looking very comfortable. Meanwhile, Stefan Vessels in his attempt to try and get himself back up through the field, he has got himself into P20 overall, that's P8 in the AM class. To be fair, and keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, he may be the fastest man on the circuit, although we'll talk about him again in a minute, as William Foyle has made the same mistake as what Jamie Dory made only moments ago at turn number 3. And this is tragic for William Foyle, who's come out in the midst of the battle for what was P6 is now the battle for P5, and you can see he's tucked in behind Gareth Williams, with Matthew Prouting and Joshua Wiggins just behind, and these drivers, it's all chopped and changed, and it means we've got a huge battle for the final position in the top 5 of the Pro Class, going all the way to the wire here as they make their way down towards turn number 8. I can also give you an update that Paul Walton is very gradually closing up to Paul Scott in the battle for P2. We'll come to that in a bit, but as we look at the battle for P5 right now, with Joshua Wiggins falling back to a degree, you can see him there in the rear of your picture. It is the case that right now as they all come charging across that timing line, it does look as though William Foyle finds himself now between a rock and a hard place. The rock being, of course, Gareth Williams, the hard place being Matthew Prouting. And how's he going to navigate this and try and beat the pair of them? If he can, of course, as they make their way up the hill and towards turn number 2 once again. But what we were briefly going to say about Stefan Vessels, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that because he has been a lap down pretty much since the start of this race, he will have been blue flagged continuously, so his recovery job is being made all the more harder by being a lap down and being given blue flags every time a driver comes up behind him. But still, to recover to where he is right now is no detriment to his performance, as we can see our drivers pushing on all this time, and with only 12 minutes to go right now, anything that can happen in the battle for P5. As you can see, Mark Baker staying as clear as possible here. He does not want to be anywhere near this battle, obeying the blue flags for all 3 drivers as they come on through. And meanwhile, in the battle for what is P2 in the Pro Class and overall, we can see Paul Walton continuing that charge, but he's not able to close up enough here versus Paul Scott as they make their way down into turn number 8 one more time. And as they come roaring down into 9, it is the case as Alistair Cook sits the fastest lap of the race at 29.6. What can the drivers ahead do? What can these drivers do who follow him? Well, Paul Scott at 30.1, Paul Walton at 30.2. It is the case they do not have the pace to match leader Jamie Dory at 30.0. I think Jamie Dory could be trying to come back right at the end here for a battle onto the podium after that mistake. If he does, it will be a huge recovery effort and then something as he makes his way roaring up towards turn at number 2. Anything can happen still as he makes his way up towards the corner, and only time will tell as he makes his way onto this lap. Meanwhile, Gareth Williams a bit further back, the best part of 9.5 seconds back. He's made the break from William Foyle, and I think William Foyle now will be battling with what is Matthew Prouting for the rest of this as they make their way up the hill into the braking zone for turn number 2 themselves. And as they come on in, you can see the gap between the drivers As is the case, the Crest Autosport driver falling more and more backwards towards the RP Motorsport machine of what is Matthew Prouting as they head down towards turn number 3. Now, as they make their way down the hill, meanwhile, it is the case a bit further coming up to the hill. It is Darren Doherty, the leader of the AM class. He's got Paul Williams and Lambert Wedder behind, and I think he's going to give the space here to Paul Williams to come through down the inside. As you can see, it's the case, whilst he could battle for position, there is technically no need as they are in different classes, and Doherty's just going to tuck in and simply ride in the slipstream of a fellow Ferrari driver as they roll on down towards turn number 2. But whilst this is happening a bit further back in P2 in the AM class, P12 overall, we've got Gareth Mills here, and in terms of his lap times versus Darren Doherty, he is lapping slightly faster than Darren Doherty right now. That last lap he was half a second faster. Could it be the case that Gareth Mills is able to challenge for the lead right at the end? Well, I think to do so he would need to be closing him down a second a lap at this rate, otherwise he will not be there, with the gap being 6.2 seconds and oscillating around the 6-second mark. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Gareth Mills at this point will be crusading home for a P2 and his highest performance of the season so far, coming home P2 in the feature race, but we will wait and see. But meanwhile, a driver who will be pushed on is Matthew Prouting here as we look back to the battle for P6 overall in the Pro class, and Prouting versus William Foyle, the Audi of Foyle, defending on the inside but very slow outer one versus Prouting, who gets ahead, and now Foyle tucks back in immediately as they make their way into the braking zone for 2, and Foyle not able to come back here. He'll try and get a good run out of 2, so that way he can go back on the offensive into 3, with the BMW being strong in the straight line, not as strong as it used to be, and the Audi being there right with it, as they make their way in the long run down now towards turn number 3. And as they come into the heavy braking zone here, will we see a change between these two drivers? I don't think so. In fact, I think they're going to stay as they were for the time being, but you can see Foyle trying to build up some momentum as they make their way through. Elwyn Sykes into the pits, what we believe is another pit stop, and that's going to drop in considerably down the order from what was at the time P3 in class. He's dropping down the order now as he takes that pit stop. But you can see, meanwhile, Matthew Prouting, where he's got what is the form of William Foyle right on his inside. They're coming out to 6 onto the outside of 7. Alistair Curtin raises the fastest lap to a 29.608, but it won't matter to these guys. All that will matter to them is the battle as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Briton of Prouting as he tries to hold on. He runs a bit wide though, and he will get a warning for track limits there, pushing the limits to a massive advantage or not. It is the case that those track limits warnings will hit our drivers, and they'll be given an instant every time, an instant point, which will add towards their grand total, as we're hearing that Jamie Doherty has just gone the fastest of anybody at 29.5. So it is the case right now, a lot of drivers unleashing the beast at the final hour, as Matthew Prouting's now got the pressure here of what is William Foyle on his inside, as Foyle got the better run out of 1. They go up the hill towards 2. It's going to be Foyle on the inside versus Prouting on the outside into the braking zone. And as they come on in at this point, it does look as though Foyle's going to have the advantage. You can see Joshua Wiggins coming in very, very late there. I think it was the case that Wiggins was saying, hey, don't mind if I do, thank you. And where it was a very smart attempt, but he wasn't able to get it done in the end. And as a result, he's had to tuck back into P8 overall and in class as they make their way down. But Wiggins looking for the opportunity. He knows he hasn't got the straight line speed in that Porsche, but what he does have is a very strong set of brakes and the will to win, and that's sometimes all you need to try and go for a move as they make their way up into turn number 5 with only 7 minutes to go right now. Meanwhile, I can tell you further up the road, our fastest man on circuit, Jamie Doherty, is not closed up to Paul Walton and Paul Scott rapidly enough. It is the case, whilst on that last lap he stripped 0.6 of a second out of Paul Walton. That gap is not coming down at the rate he needs, to be in that battle with Walton come the end of this race. As we look on, and he tries to build up more momentum here now that he's got Jack Wyborn ahead of him. Jack Wyborn, of course, with that moment earlier in the race, we saw him drop out of the lead at the AM class, but as they make their way now up towards turn number 2, we can see that in the battle for the bottom 2 steps of the podium is the case Walton closing up to Scott. Now, what can Walton do? Well, I think he's going to have to wait for that opportunity, and he will only get it on 1 lap, and that's where he's going to have to make it count. I don't think Walton wants to go for it too soon. Meanwhile, speaking of RD Simsport, Josh Wiggins here all over the back of Prouting. Prouting really struggling out of turn 1, it would seem, and Wiggins is going to try and go around the outside as they make the way into braking, but Prouting goes nice and deep there and forces Wiggins as wide as possible as they emerge from the corner and now make their way down towards turn number 3, and it does look as though Wiggins trying to just just simply out-drag the BMW, but he's not going to be able to do it. You can see he's tacking onto the slipstream of William Foyle as they make their way through. Foyle, of course, will want these two to battle, so that way he's able to stay nice and safe in that P6 position as they make their way through 4, but Wiggins has to back out here into turn number 4 and now make his way into 5 behind once again, but he is trying to find every which way. He's trying to throw everything in the book, plus the kitchen sink, in order to get that P7 come the end of this race, but he can't quite find it this time as Prouty goes a bit deep and slides the car there, a little bit of oversteer, and as they make the way on through, it shows you how hard Prouty is pushing and how those tyres are starting to give way. It looks like Wiggins might have a run on the inside here. If he's going to go for it, he's going to go for it late. Prouty gives him the space on the inside, runs a bit wide there, but he uses the runoff there to just carry some momentum, and as they make the way on through, it is the case the two of them nose to tail still, and you can see Prouty has picked up a slowdown, and that will give Wiggins the place as they now make their way onto another lap and up to turn 1. Wiggins up to P7, Prouty down to P8. We've still got we've still got 5 minutes to go, approximately 3 more laps to go. Could we see another chop and change here, or will it be the case that the battle subsides? We'll have to wait and see. And speaking of battles that we may see build up again, Paul Walton has dropped away from Paul Scott to a degree, but now he's closed up once again in the run down towards turn number 3. But I don't think he's going to be able to find a way through any time soon, unless Scott gets it very wrong out of a corner. But as they make their way up towards turn number 5, we ride on board here with Paul Walton as we're seeing the closing period now of this race. We've got only a couple more laps to go, and as they make their way out of turn 5 and into 6, you can see Walton is inching closer, and as they make their way out of 6 and 7, Walton is the closest he's ever been and is continuing to bring that gap down as they make their way into turn number 8. He is fighting an uphill battle here at Walton, and I think he wants to get this P2 as much as he can as Alistair Kurt now raises the bar for the fastest lap to 29.4. I think it's the case our race leaders having a bit too much fun in the lead, as we can see Walton all over the back of Paul Scott. They now go for the drag race up towards turn number 1 as they go onto the penultimate lap here. They make their way into the braking zone. Scott defends, Walton on the outside. Walton will go for the cutback here. He'll try and carry the natural momentum through the corner. Paul Scott loses out as a result, and now it's the long run up towards turn number 2. You can see Jamie Dory now only 2.1 seconds behind. I think Scott might be trying to back Walton into Dory as they make the way out. It's going to be Walton who squeezed the inside. He can't find the space. He looks the outside. Paul Scott holds in the middle of the road, defends very hard, and as they now emerge, you can see just how hard Walton's trying to work to find some space alongside. But every time Paul Scott's putting his car exactly where he needs to be to make it inconvenient for Walton. And as they make their way down into 3, again it's Walton trying to go around the outside into a heavy braking zone. He's going to try and do it. He'll use the advantage of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive layout of the Lamborghini, but he can't quite get it done. Instead he has to tuck back in. And this is fantastic between the two of them as they now make their way into turn number 5. But you can see just how difficult it is for Walton to pass. That BMW just seems to have an answer for everything Walton can throw at Scott, as Paul Scott holds on to P2 for now. But will it be the same as they go on to the final lap in the near future? In fact, I think we're going to have 2 more laps after this one. We have got the time, as meanwhile William Foyle's got Joshua Wiggins on his inside here in the battle for what is P6 in the Pro Class. Also P6 in the Pro Class, as they make their way through side by side. These two go as Wiggins on the outside of 7 leaves himself open to Prouty. We will have 2 more laps after this one. We've got the time for them, so as a result it's not quite over yet for our drivers, so they're not moving on to the final lap. They've still got plenty of racing distance to go. Meanwhile Paul Walton, having had a good run out of turn number 1, he is battling with what is there. That is battling with Paul Scott as they make their way up the hill, and you can see behind just how much Jamie Dory has closed up as they make their way into the braking zone. It's Walton on the inside for P2 in the Pro Class. It's Scott on the outside. Jamie Dory closes up behind as well, and you can see that now as they all emerge from the corner, it's the long slipstream train down towards turn number 3 with Walton at the head of the pack as they make their way on down. We ride on board the gearbox here of Paul Walton as they make their way into the inside of turn number 3. Into the braking zone they go. It's Paul Scott trying to go around the outside. Dory's also going to look for the cutback here. He'll try to gain the place of his teammate, and at the same time trying to go for the move for P2 as they make their way on in. Into turn number 5 they go, and you can see Paul Scott having to go a bit defensive versus Dory. He wants P3 as well as they make the way down, but Jamie Dory's looking to the inside here, and Paul Scott's giving him the space, and he will be off the racing line, and this will give Dory everything he needs for the momentum as it builds up to a crescendo here. Our race leader has gone on to the final lap. The white flag is out. We'll look to them soon. But right now, Paul Scott, I think, is trying to hold off Jamie Dory, and Walton is being released as they go on to the final lap here, as Paul Scott tries to now hold on to the final step of the podium versus his teammate, who will want this so badly after that mistake at turn 3 towards the end of this race. They're side by side as they go on to the final lap. They go on to lap number 40, and Jamie Dory's up the inside versus Paul Scott. Now, will Paul Scott try and cut back here? It's going to go for it. Paul Scott is going to look for the cutback, and that's the long run up towards turn number 2. As they come charging on up the hill here, it's Paul Scott on the inside versus Jamie Dory on the outside, the Audi on the right, the BMW on the left, as they make their way into the braking zone. And as they come on through, it's going to be the case that both drivers pushing on. Will we see a change of places? We see that Paul Scott goes a little bit deep, but Jamie Dory holds on for the time being and gets the exit he needs to be able to take this one. I think the distance now as they make their way on through the corners, and as they come charging on through, it is the case that right now Jamie Dory is up into P3 and Paul Scott has not got an answer. Meanwhile, Joshua Williams battling with William Foyle as they make their way down towards turn 3. And you can see the two of them side by side here as it's Porsche versus Audi, the two German manufactured machines going toe to toe in the hands of two Britons as they come into the braking zone. But we have to break away from this, ladies and gentlemen, because our race leader is coming through the final 2 corners. Well, what can we say other than it was a brilliant sprint race, and he's made it a brilliant feature race to make it back-to-back wins at the Red Bull Ring. It is Alistair Kirk who takes the win at the Red Bull Ring in the feature race overall and in the Pro Class. A fantastic drive from Alistair Kirk, and he will be very pleased with that. Meanwhile, in the hunt for P2, he had a disaster at the end of the sprint, but it's not a disaster in the feature, as Paul Walton keeps his championship hopes alive with a P2 in the feature ahead of Jamie Dory, who rounds off the podium after an unfortunate mistake cost him the chance at the win. Paul Scott P4, Gareth Williams comes across in P5 with that disastrous moment earlier on and recovers to P5 well. William Foyle in the end will come across the line P6 ahead of Josh Wiggins and Matthew Prouting, and it will be Paul Williams who comes on through to take P9 in the Pro Class in the feature race. A great drive from Paul Williams as he comes through the final corner here and makes his way on through to take the position. And then it will be Darren Doherty who comes across the line, flashing his lights from left to right. A brilliant drive, and the Altitude Esports driver is the deserved winner in the AM class of the feature of the Red Bull Ring. A fantastic effort from Darren Doherty, and the one to make the lead, the win in the end, with so many drivers falling by the wayside. Lambert Wedder P11, Sean Shute coming home on his debut in P2 in the AM class in the feature race. A brilliant driver from the racing team, Astra driver, and one to watch out for going forward. Nigel Stock comes home in P13 in the end overall, and whilst the replay has stopped, it was Gareth Mills who came on through to pick up the first step on the podium in the AM class. A great drive from Gareth Mills as well, and Stuart P. Taylor rounding off all of our drivers who completed the race on the lead lap, finishing P15 overall, P12 in the Pro Class. Davide Favo and Elwyn Sykes completing the top 5 for the AM class racing team Astra, having a day at the office, albeit Stefan Vessels having a difficult feature race with that incident at the start. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic finish, and we'll be back very shortly for our post-race interviews with our race winners. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're ready for our post-race interviews of our winners of the feature race, and what a cracking feature race it was, whether it was in the AM class or the Pro class. Plenty of back and forth battles amongst the drivers, where it was for the lead, alternatively for the rest of the podium, or even the top 5. There were battles left, right and centre, and that's what the Red Bull Ring is all about. Without further ado, let's bring Darren Doherty, our AM winner, into the interview room and hear his thoughts on a race which was quite a difficult one for everybody who took the lead of the AM class at some point. Hello Darren, can you hear me? There might be some very slight technical issues for Darren. We're just going to give him a brief moment and he should be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for that. We're just going to try and bring Darren back into the interview room once again. Hello Darren, can you hear me? Let's see, we're having some very slight technical issues here with Darren. We're going to try a slightly different approach. Just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. Just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've identified fixed the issue, and we are going to be heading to Darren Doherty very shortly. We'll be bringing him into the interview room. Hello, Darren. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Paul.
Sorry about the technical issues there, but finally got those resolved. Not sure what happened there, but more importantly, congratulations on the win in the feature race. How does it feel to be on the top step of the podium at the Red Bull Ring?
Yeah, listen, I think a lot went on over the 60 minutes, but I spun on I think lap 2. I gained places on the first lap. I always expected it in around a P2, P3 behind Mark Baker and Stefan, but I was very surprised being P2 after lap 2. But I did spin, put me back of the field. Honestly, I thought that was it. I just a recovery drive at this stage, but I'm actually I'm surprised I've actually ended up in P1 by the end of the race.
Well, it was a brilliant recovery effort from yourself. And you say the spin, whilst we didn't catch the spin on the second lap, but seeing you drop all the way from P2 down towards the back, just take us through what goes through your mind at that point in terms of you started off on a good rhythm, gained a lot of places, and then you just see it all crumble away. What do you have to sort of tell yourself to fight back like you did?
Yeah, I think the fact that the race is 60 minutes, whenever I spun, lucky enough I didn't hit the wall or anything, so I didn't need to do the quick repair, go to the pits. I come back out, start the back of the field. I knew I was a bit of a second or two ahead of probably midfield arms, so I goes right. If I keep at it, I'll gain at least 7 or 8 places. But I know a few things have happened ahead of me. I know Stefan, that man's in a league of his own. Like he is rapid. Whenever I looked and I seen that he was in the pit lane, it just gave me that extra boost to push, because I knew it was that chance to gain extra points. And then obviously, at that stage, halfway through and in around 20 minutes, I think I was chasing Mark Baker. And it's a bit unfortunate that, he collided with one of the back markers, which led me to the P1 position. And I think after that, it was just about holding that position. There was a few pros. I was able to hold it. But I did lift for Paul and Lambert. I think they were fighting together, so I did lift to let them past, because at the end of the day, I didn't want to interrupt their races. Plus, I didn't want to jeopardize my position where I was.
I definitely understandable, and I think a very smart and sensible approach through and through to deliver what was an absolutely emphatic win. I do have to ask, with the incident that occurred early on with yourself where you dropped down, did that change your strategy, or did you stick to the same strategy as what you planned at the start of the race?
No, it was always the plan was always to run the fuel as long as I can. And if you watch, obviously during the race there, I sat behind Mark Baker for a while. I was able to keep the pace behind him, but in fairness, respect to Mark, I think Mark was slightly quicker. I would struggle to pass him, but I was sitting behind him, knowing that I was trying to fuel save for a few laps, hopefully to catch the extra couple of seconds in the pit lane. But we didn't get that stage, obviously, because of what happened, Mark. But the strategy didn't change. I thought at that stage when I done the spin, it was just recovery. So I'd run the car until as far as I could, and then do the pit stop, and then see what happens from there.
Oh, definitely, that makes sense. And yes, it was unfortunate with what happened to Mark. You two were very close throughout. And we were wondering if you were perhaps doing a little bit of fuel saving behind Mark in that stint where you weren't able to quite get past him, but you're right on the back of him. But still, one person's misfortune has turned into the fortune for yourself, plus also your outright pace. And then looking forward to round number 8, Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time, how are you feeling for the very tricky Belgian circuit?
Yeah, listen, as you rightly said during the broadcast there, the Ferrari has probably gained a bit of top speed. Spa, well, the first half of the track is high speed, so I'm hoping to gain advantage over now the BMs and probably the Audis in that track, which will give us advantage, probably myself, Mark Baker, both driving Ferraris. So Staffen, I think, and respect to Staffen, if that man stays on track, it's all about P2 and P3 at this stage with himself and Mark Baker. Gareth Miles, sorry. I just held the pace with him. He's definitely up there as well. So I'll have to get practicing to make sure I stay ahead of both guys, but I'm sure it'll be close again. And respect to all the drivers. I think if you watch that race back, there was a lot of close racing there and very little incidents throughout that race. There was very respectful racing.
Oh, indeed, it was fantastic racing all the way through and through. And as you say, great respect shown between all the individuals involved. And we look forward to seeing you take to the Belgian circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on the win in the feature. And well, we look forward to seeing how your championship campaign continues in a week's time.
All right. Thanks very much, Paul. Good job. Thank you.
All the best. So having heard there from what is Darren Doherty, we now move on to our winner of the Pro feature race, and that is Alistair Kirk. So without further ado, let's bring Alistair Kirk into the interview room. Alistair, are you there?
Hi mate, you okay?
All good, thank you. But more importantly, Alistair, 2 wins back-to-back tonight. You're making your own little bit of personal history within the series, and well, not just a maiden win, but a maiden dominant night for yourself at the Red Bull Ring. How's it feel?
Yeah, no, it feels really good. As I said after the sprint race, I didn't have a good Le Mans, so it put me down in P8 in the championship. It kind of was with the reverse championship grid for the feature race. It kind of put me up maybe a few more positions than kind of is expected with kind of the pace and things. But anyway, I got on with it. And I see that Stuart was at my teammate was at the front of the field there, and he kept a solid race going. We tried to work together, and I was pushing my way through the field. I think I was in P3 or P4 when Stuart had his little incident, and then I got close with Jamie, and then William had his incident, and it's just all about kind of, I didn't know what Jamie was going to do, and we're really quite similarly paced, to be honest. Just about being sensible and try not to do anything too rash. We were kind of trading places quite a lot, but before the lap before I actually pitted, I tried to pit, but I missed the pit entry, so that was kind of a bit sketchy. But it is what it is, and we got it done. So I'm very happy.
Oh, indeed. And just focusing on the battle with Jamie Dorr in particular, we saw the two of you, as you say, back and forth exchanging positions, but you came into the pits just ahead of him and emerged from the pits just ahead as well by a hair's width. Just what was going through your mind at that point? Were you thinking to yourself, oh no, we're going to lose out in the pits? Or was it literally kicking and screaming at the steering wheel saying, just let me go, let me come back out in the lead?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of the time, because the Lambo, the Lambo and the Audi, because they've both got the Audi engine, they guzzle fuel. So my tactic a lot of the time is to put half a lap, maybe an extra lap fuel in, just in case. And I did that, and full well knowing that Jamie would probably fuel his car, to what he needed. And I knew it'd be really tight out the pit lane. I was getting a little bit anxious, but I knew I had a little bit of a margin. Well, I say a little bit of a margin; it was barely anything. But I was ahead when we came into the pits, and that's what mattered. And we got out, and then luckily Stu was just ahead of us there, and we kind of discussed what we were going to do on the team radio, and I made it past Stu, and it was just good clean racing. So yeah.
Oh, most definitely. And just about that moment there where we saw your teammate Stuart Taylor essentially work a strategy much like we've seen it from Red Bull in Formula One, where they've normally had, say, Sergio Perez run as a second driver longer and as a result hold up the main rival to the number one driver in the team. And it was a situation like that as demonstrated between yourself and Taylor. In coordinating that, and how difficult was it to sort of navigate past Taylor, but at the same time make sure that Dory couldn't find a way to come through with you, if you see where I'm coming from? How do you shut the door so it's okay, it's only TGC racing drivers come on through?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, with the pit stop, it was actually Stuart's idea to pit when I pitted. So kudos to him on that one, and thank you very much, Stu. But yeah, we came out just behind him. And I knew that Jamie was going to be quick anyway. But I know one thing with the Lambo maybe has an advantage over the Audi is that the Audi is it's not a quick car on cold tyres. It's on the edge anyway, but it's on the edge even more on cold tyres. And I knew that within I needed to get past Stuart within the first couple of laps out of the box, out of the pits. And I made the move up into turn 2, and then I saw that Jamie got quite a good run on Stu, so I pulled back in front of Stuart to give him a bit of a slipstream there, and then he just tried to hold off Jamie as long as he could, really, and I gapped him by about a second. I think they actually touched. They both got a little bit of damage, so I mean it wasn't intentional or anything, but so I think Jamie got a bit of damage, and obviously that affected him a little bit of straight line speed and stuff, and I managed to just put away then. So.
Oh, indeed, and we could see there was that little bit of contact between the two of them coming down for, I think it was turn 3 at the time. But as you say, it's just a part of the racing. Now, one final question we have before we come on to looking ahead to next week. We had a question from a viewer, Fujiwara So, who was asking, what was more difficult on this track, tyres or fuel?
Honestly, for me, it's fuel. I'm pretty good on my tyres, to be honest, with pretty much every car I drive. I struggle with my fuel limits and knowing what to put in and things like that. I know Stu has a bit more experience with like iRacing and things anyway, so I kind of rely on him quite a bit to kind of work out strategies and that properly. Kudos to him for that. He always tries his best to help all the team out. And but yeah, just fuel. I mean, as I said earlier, the Lambo with the Audi engine, it does guzzle the fuel, so that's why I had to put an extra lap of fuel in there at the end.
I see. And then looking ahead to Spa in a week's time, the legendary Belgian circuit, known for its 24 hours of endurance, but we'll be only doing a 15-minute sprint and a 60-minute feature. How are you feeling for Spa?
Yeah, no, I feel really comfortable in the Lambo at Spa. We done, TGC done the Spa 24 hours back in June or July, whatever it was, and we used a Lambo then. And yeah, we were doing well in that race, so I expect to be kind of be on the pace really for Spa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you head to the Belgian tarmac in a week's time. But until then, thank you for joining us in the interview, Alistair, once again, and congratulations on what has been a dominant display from yourself tonight.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
So hearing there once again from Alistair Kirk, who with that double pair of wins will pick up some major points in his championship campaign. And indeed, it's only going to further what is the dash for the top 5 of the Pro Championship. But with that concludes our post-race interviews with our race winners. And now it is time for us to say thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out, our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, you have our official Facebook group, that is facebook.com facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners without whom it would not be possible to bring you this lobby, and our primary sponsors for this lobby, of course, are Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing. But now we look ahead to a week's time when we head to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in what is round number 8 of the 12-round calendar. We continue the Tour of Europe, and it'll be on Thursday, the 13th of January 2022, that we bring you all the racing action from Lobby 2. That's the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing Lobby. And indeed, as we were mentioning just there with Alistair Kirk, the Spa circuit, a legendary circuit normally featured as part of the Spa 24-hour, and this circuit seen as a test of a man's endurance or a woman's endurance behind the wheel, and it is a very, very tricky circuit with 3 very distinct sectors. And Chris Keenan, of course, will be bringing us the reference lap for the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing Lobby next time out, as we look at him from an exterior camera right now, taking the Belgian BMW M4 around his home circuit, but as he makes his way up through the legendary combination of Uruge and Radion, as he makes his way up the hill, this circuit will test our drives in every single capacity. Much like Le Mans did in round number 6, this circuit has a little bit of everything, and you can imagine with that, it means that our drivers will need to stay on their toes, and we could see some championship campaigns really grow and others tumble, with the Spa circuit being host to what is a tricky round. Compared to where we saw it in Season 1, we had the 2-hour endurance race. Next time it will be the sprint and the feature, which will also be a different challenge in its entirety, because there will be a limited number of opportunities to go for overtakes in 15 minutes and 60 minutes. But until then, we'll just have to wait and keep on guessing how it's all going to play out in round number 8. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have been Next Gen Racing. I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I hope you have enjoyed, and if you have, be sure to let us know via our Facebook group, alternatively our official website. But from all of us here, we wish you all a wonderful night, and until next week, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.